Good evening. My name is Lois Spence, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Inland Wetland Commission meeting for the town of Monroe. It is August 25th, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And the time is 7:06. I will take a roll call of members of the commission and staff present during tonight's remote meeting. Please answer here or present, starting with myself, Lois Spence, Vice Chair and Secretary. Jim Stewart. Credentials. He's our treasurer and the soil scientist and engineer. Clark Gingras.
Engineer and land surveyor.
Oh, and surveyor. I'm sorry, not soil scientist. How do you get that?
Okay.
Ross Mastrocca.
I'm here.
Okay. BJ Hall.
Present.
Inland Wetlands Agent. Joe Chapman.
Present.
Donna Szynski, Office Manager.
Present.
Sarah Stroud, Recording Secretary.
Present.
And Barbara Schellenberg, Special Counsel. Is there anybody that I missed?
Although it's town engineer Scott Schatzline.
And town engineer Scott Schatzline. Welcome, Scott. Okay, before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetland Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission, during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. Due to remote meeting status, I'd like to keep the applicants to keep presentations as concise as possible. The commission will then review town staff and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition to, or in of general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. Again, due to the remote meeting status, please keep comments or questions direct, and a time limit of 3 minutes may be imposed. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally is in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep all comments, pro and con, specific to inland wetland related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comment allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, there are. Let's see. Under item E10, time extensions, I have the addition of IWC-2017-04. It is 24 Commerce Drive, and they are requesting a 5-year extension.
Okay.
Let's see. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Great. All right. Let's see. Next is time for a general public participation. Are there any members of the public that would like to address us on issues that are not on our agenda tonight?
I would, Madam Chair, if I may.
Right ahead. Please identify yourself.
Yes, good evening. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross. It's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of Peter Metropolis, trustee, who, as you know, is the owner of the property at 36 Timothy Hill. It is a property that abuts the premises at 6 Independence Drive. It's appropriate that I'm addressing you tonight East Park, Colorado, at the location of the Continental Divide, which, as many of you recognize, is the division line where water on one side of the continental Ocean and water on the east side ends
Mr.
up.
Green, first of all, you're breaking up, and does this have anything to do with the matter that we will be deliberating on tonight? 64
has-
Cambridge and for independence? Because I'm afraid I will not allow your comments.
It has to do with, just bear with me for one moment.
Yeah, we're having problems with your receiving.
That should be better. So
Okay.
it has to do with events that occurred following the events that are the subject of your application this evening. So
I'm not-
it is
Let
involved.
me check with our special counsel and see if she feels that this is appropriate. I can't go forward until I have heard from her. Barbara, are you on?
Yes, sorry.
Do you feel that this is appropriate?
I don't feel it's appropriate to have comments about a matter that the commission will be deliberating on. That's been closed. It was not a public hearing, it was a public meeting. The intervener certainly had the right to speak and did speak. And I don't think this is an appropriate topic for the public session, general public comments.
So just for the record, and so that the record is clear, the events that I am referring to occurred after the close of the public hearing. The events that I am referring to are the subject of photographs that I have submitted into the record for your meeting this evening. And I would submit on behalf of my client that they are appropriate in that these are new activities on a site. And once again, all occurred after the close of the public hearing. Therefore, counter to the town attorney's position, I could not have possibly commented on them in the course of the public hearing.
But the commission has started deliberating on this matter already.
Not on these activities, apparently.
Well, you can always
Lois, may
bring
I
that to
suggest that we
you-
plan to comment after the end of the meeting, after we've made our decision, if we make one? That way what he's saying doesn't contaminate our decision, and yet he still gets to say what he wants to say.
I would like to let the attorneys battle this one out.
Well, I was going to comment similarly, not necessarily that that these comments should be made at the end of this meeting, but Attorney Green or his client certainly can bring a matter to the attention of the commission following their deliberations on this matter. If there is something new he feels that is pertinent, that would be the appropriate time.
May I be heard, Vice Chairman Spence, just briefly?
Very briefly.
Thank you. Not only is it inappropriate
Please
for
identify
Attorney Green
yourself.
excuse me?
Please,
Sorry.
please name and
Yes,
et cetera.
thank you. Yes, my name is Attorney Steve Finn. I represent the applicant for 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence Drive. Not only is it inappropriate for Attorney Green to make any comments about any pending
Mr. Finn,
application.
excuse me, that is a decision for our special counsel. I'm sorry, I have to cut you off, but our special counsel is the one we are listening to at this point. So if you will indulge me, I will concede to her decision alone. So thank you for your comments, but I'm afraid I can't take them into consideration at this time.
Well, I would like them to be heard by Attorney Schellenberg.
Commission.
I would like them to be heard by Attorney Schellenberg then. So Mr. Green has tried to make an argument. I'd like to respond briefly so that Attorney Schellenberg gets to hear from him.
We're not making any arguments because we're not hearing it right now. So thank you. Mr. Green, if you would like to, I don't know, what's the flavor of the commission? Would you like to hear this after our meeting? Or shall we have Mr. Green address our staff at another time? How does everybody feel?
He should send that information into the staff. I really don't need to hear about it during this meeting.
I would agree. Formal submission of the information to be heard after the decision is made.
Well, Mr. Green, I'm as much as I'd like to hear what you have to say, I'm afraid it might flavor our decision, and we can't do that. That's information after the fact. So
I respect the ruling of the commission, but please note my objection for the record. Thank you.
so noted. Thank you very much. And please contact our staff with whatever it is that you have to say. Thank you. And I noticed that Keith is on. It is 7:16, and I can turn it back over to Keith.
Thank you. Where are we on the agenda?
We just did public participation. Were there any other members of the public? I don't know if there were.
Okay. And what was just to give me a little backup of what just transpired, a little.
Mr. Green was saying that he had new developments that he wanted us to know that happened after the hearing was closed. We consulted Attorney Schellenberg, and she advised that we not hear it now until after deliberations are over.
Thank you. So public participation is over?
No.
It's not.
No.
Okay. Well, we have a problem tonight. The public notices for the public hearings were done incorrectly. We can't have any of the public hearings tonight.
Oh, okay.
So,
why is that, Keith?
because 20 people showed up at town hall.
Yes, I just was advised of this information, and apparently the meetings were noticed as hybrid meetings. And so as the chairman just mentioned, a number of people showed up in person at town hall for the meetings. So that's a problem.
So that this is going to have to obviously be renoticed and tabled until that time that the notice, proper notice is given. So if anybody here was going to have a public comment about that, that's why I wanted to interject that.
I'm looking at the legal notice. It said the type of meeting would be listed on the meeting agenda.
I have a notice that, and
It's not listed as a hybrid meeting. It said that either by remote access or in town hall. The location, type of meeting will be listed on the meeting agenda for the following applications.
So maybe that's what people were looking at, and it was a little confusing for them, I guess, since all of these people showed up at town hall. But I understand how you were dealing with this, Donna.
so, I mean, I got a call from the first selectman on this. So it's what he said. I mean, I guess.
Okay, I
don't understand what the problem is fully, but apparently if people showed up at town hall, I mean, it's just even fair, I think, regardless. But it does seem like there was some kind of mix up in the wording of the notice. So let's continue on to general public participation. If there's anybody else in the here tonight that wants to speak to the commission about something of a general nature, but it's also not in front of us now or going to be in front of us in the near future. Okay, it doesn't look like that's anything. Then regulated activities, subdivision report, recommendation of P&Z Commission, none. General meeting, regular meeting, no public input, none. Public hearings are tabled. Enforcement and open discussion. Oops, sorry. IWV 2021-05 101 Barn Hill Road, clearing a wetland area. So that one is the nursery?
That's correct.
Have we have any new updates on this?
No, I had a conversation with the owner of the property early in the, or excuse me, rather late last week. He requested an extension on this. He is in the process of, by suggestion, of getting soil scientist actually to demarc where the wetlands and the upland view actually is, since we don't have anything that appears to be concrete enough to be able to make a decision on this. So I said to him, that's fine. Get somebody to mark this out for us and let me know when you have a map available.
Okay, so that's the update.
Correct.
Had they come back with, or has anybody discovered anything that would explain to the commission what they are allowed to do and not do within wetlands with a farm status or whatever they have, or what status they even do have? Has any of that been determined?
The only thing I've come up with, Keith, is that they are a registered nursery in Connecticut. It appears from the exemption statutes in the in state regulations that nurseries appear to be, they fall under the exempt status. So the problem I'm having at the moment is I'd like the commission to give me a little bit of guidance on what they feel is not exempt out there, since their position seems to be that they have by right the ability to do what they're doing out there.
Okay.
And I'm happy to listen to someone who has another opinion, because at the moment I'm only reading what the statute says, and the word exempt seems to jump out at me more than once.
So they're exempt from coming to a wetlands commission to do work in a wetlands.
Well, and there appears to be different interpretations of this, but the word exempt is clearly there.
If I may be of
Yes,
any
please.
help at all, if you look at 4.1A, number 4, that is the exemption section. It says that yes, they are exempt. The provisions of this section shall not be construed to include, if you go to number 4, is clear cutting of timber except for the expansion of agricultural cropland. Now, I don't know if this would be considered agricultural cropland. And is it an expansion of agricultural cropland? So this is where we run into, I think that's, I think if I'm recording my training serves me right, that's up to the decision that, the commission to decide as to whether or not that would be an expansion of what a crop is, and whether or not it's an expansion of cropland.
Well, I think the part that's kind of interesting to me about this whole thing is that they came to us with an application, then they withdrew it. Or was it an application, or was it a general discussion about, I don't remember if it was a full-on application or if they were just in front of us to have a discussion, but they came to us seeking our input at the very least about doing this project on the nursery and the wetlands. Then whatever they had, they withdrew or they stopped communicating with us. They went ahead and did it anyways. So my guess is somewhere on their side of the equation, they discovered some kind of information that led them to believe that they didn't need our permission to do this work. Because
but they did have an agent approval from Denise to clear dead and dying wood.
Correct.
Right.
So
right.
This was a little bit more extensive than that.
Right, and they didn't even, I remember we were in a discussion about how, what mechanisms we wanted to let them use to clear, how much ground disturbance was going to be acceptable, erosion control, everything else. And then all of a sudden they withdrew, and then they just went and did it anyways. So it's either, that's kind of, I can't think of the word, but on their part, but also what did they must have discovered something, I would assume, that they would fall back on as a defense of a right of, as of right for themselves to do it without coming to us. So I'd like to know where they felt that they didn't have to have a commitment from us to do it. They must have had something. Or they just said, screw us, and we're going to do it anyway. So it has to be one of the two. One of the two is the only thing I can think of. But if Joe, you're saying that, work is still underway with trying to figure this out, I don't see that we have to discuss anything else anymore unless there's some kind of timeline that we're running out of.
No, I mean, I think you're correct on this one, Keith. The work has already been done. They're in the process of cleaning up out there and essentially spreading out wood chips so that they can place growing trees and shrubs and nursery stock in that area. I didn't go out there this week yet to take another look at it. Last time I was out was sort of the end of last week. And certainly the impression that I'm getting from a conversation with John, the owner of the property, is that they have the right to do this. And it does seem to be a bit of a problem in the interpretation of what, as Lois pointed out, what agricultural areas. I mean, if you traditionally think that, okay, it's growing corn, okay, that's not what they're doing. But if you talk to virtually any nursery guy, he'll tell you that I've got agricultural product out here. I'm a nursery. I'm exempt. So it's a bit of a conundrum for me to. What I haven't seen yet from either side is a smoking gun that says, I'm in the right 100% on this. Now, I'm certainly happy to have somebody else chime in on this and let me know.
Yeah. Christian Hall, you have something to say?
Yes, I do want to point out that I was by there early this week, and they have planted multiple rows of trees, look like flowering type trees, maybe 8-footers, 6-footers, depending. There's a variety of plantings in place. So they are moving ahead, as Joe had described.
And they're not volunteering up any information that they're using for their determination of that they can do this.
At this point, no. I'm still I was waiting for them to get back to me with the last conversation, which was that they were going to get a soil scientist to actually show us where the actual wetlands are.
Okay. I mean, if that's the way, if that's the way they want to go, that's fine. It almost seems like that's jumping ahead a step. If they haven't even determined if they have like a blanket of, permission as a farm nursery, whatever the case may be, whatever public act it is that they're operating under. But I mean, that's doing something. It's delineating the wetlands. So I guess we leave it at that for now and see what happens moving forward. Those?
I had one other question for Joe. You said they're spreading out the wood chips. How much wood chips are they spreading? Because one of the things that is not permitted under any circumstances is filling of wetlands, filling or reclamation of wetlands. So if they're raising it above the grade where it used to be, that's filling, and that's not permitted as of right.
That I would agree with. The problem that we've got there is that I think any competent nursery guy is going to say that, first of all, we don't know where the original grade was, so because there's no elevation shots taken to start with, and we certainly see that they have cleaned that area up. Have they actually changed the elevation? That I don't know. And any nursery guy is going to tell you that's the way we operate a nursery. We put down wood chips in order to put the plants on or in or whatever as we move them in and out.
Yeah, I know.
Well, healing in a root ball with wood chips is one thing, but blanketing the whole area with wood chips, even if it was so that like there's traction issues, that's filling in the wetlands. So regardless of what the elevation was, if it's not wetland soils, and right, that would be a fill, regardless of what the grade was, right? If they took out a foot of wetland soil, put a foot of wood, it's still a fill, regardless, whether they did a cut or not beforehand. So wood chips is not a native, material. Right. So I would think that any significant amount of wood chips, I think there just has to be a lot more digging on to what, what's allowed in their, with what they have for whatever type of, act they have that they're operating under. But anything else so you can move on? Yeah.
I do want to compliment Joe on putting together a very thorough packet of information and photographs that goes back to 2014. So we've got a good catalog of information to start with when we move forward.
Okay, great. Thank
Keith,
you. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that it's on the record that the agenda itself says that this is a fully remote meeting, and everything on the website and anything that you link to says fully remote meeting.
Right.
So I just want everyone to realize that I'm sorry it was misinterpreted, but it was indeed posted correctly.
I think it has to do with the mailing thing that went out, wherever that, I think that's where the issue lies.
All right.
That is where the issue lies. Unfortunately, Donna, what happened is that the mailing that went to abutters just had the notice with it, and so those people got the impression that they could come to town hall.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And I obviously it wasn't something that you would have realized, and we know for the future, but we just want to make sure we're not prejudicing anybody's position. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Barbara.
You're welcome.
So
this is Edwards Associates. Can I speak for one moment? I'm representing one of the applications that was in the public hearing that got tabled. I just have a question.
Sure.
We did our mailings with the notice we were given. The agenda wasn't available at that time, so there was no way to include that. But we have 165 abutters, I believe. So just the postage alone to resend that is going to be, $1,300 to $1,500 to resend all the certified mailings. Is there any way that we can open the hearing and just table everything and continue it?
Open it and just close it and just
just open and close it so we don't have to renotice everything.
I don't know how that works as far as renoticing, but my thought is, so what? There's two notices that go out, one from the town and one from the applicant?
We have to notify everybody within 100 feet of the property. So we abut the High Meadow condos, that's 150 plus units. So we have to notice everybody in that complex. So it's a very time consuming and expensive, just to send out letters.
No,
so if we could somehow avoid having to redo it, that'd be great. If we have to, we have to. But
I mean, I guess the only way. I don't know. We never really dealt with this before, so I don't really know. I can't imagine how. I was just thinking in my head, if we were to take the next meeting and do it in chambers, but still, people have to be notified that this is on the agenda. But how do you know, Jason? How do you know that your mailing was wrong because it has today's date on it?
Well, my mailing, I don't think my mailing was wrong. I think we just had the notice we were given. So
I'm sorry. Why wouldn't your notice? Why wouldn't your? That's not what I meant to say. Your notice has today's date on it.
Well, it has the same meeting notice that was published. So it said, Donna sends it to us, and then we stick it in an envelope and mail it out. So it has the exact
get a copy of the legal notice.
So if that notice was incorrect, then our notices have to go out again when the hearing gets reset. I believe if the hearing's opened and just continued, then the notice is deemed sufficient because that information was all there. Then we just table it and continue at the next hearing.
How does somebody know that it was continued or that it's open and that, where the next opportunity is for them to participate in the hearing? That's the part that I'm not sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree. That's the problem because we know that all these people went to town hall. They're not here now. They're not on the virtual meeting to know that a public hearing is open and then being continued. I think those people might have already been told. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they might have been told that the public hearing is not going to go forward. So that's my concern at this point.
Barbara, does every person in a condo complex need to be contacted for a public hearing, or does it just need the overseeing body that takes care of or owns the complex?
I don't know the answer to that question offhand, Donna.
I guess it depends on how, if it's association owned or, someone owns it and just rents them out. I don't know what the deal is, but.
May I speak?
May I speak? Who's?
My name is Jim Morgantine, and I'm the president of the High Meadows Condo Association.
Okay.
I just want to share
James,
with
just
you.
Also just state your address for the record, please.
My address is 24 Underhill Road, Monroe.
Okay.
Now, you have to keep in mind, you sent 138 certified letters to a community of senior citizens, the majority of whom are in excess of 75 years old. I've spent the last week explaining to people that A, they're not being sued, B, they don't have to hire lawyers, and C, this has nothing to do with their ownership of their unit. They were absolutely scared to death to get certified letters about a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, it did not come across to them that they could not go to town hall tonight, because I personally spoke to over 15 of them to tell them that A, there was no need to go, and B, I had looked at the agenda and this was a completely virtual meeting. So sending your notice, even if it complied with every letter of the law, did not get correctly interpreted by the people who received it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to renotice, you have to make it absolutely clear that this is a virtual meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what, Barbara, I don't know if you want to chime in on that, but
I agree. I understand. I'm guessing, and Donna, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that what happened is at the time the notice of the public hearing went out, there wasn't a decision made yet as to how the meeting would be handled. And that's why the notice said what it did. And it did make clear that the agenda would have that information. But I highly recommend that next time, to avoid the situation, that a decision be made at the time the notice of the public hearing goes out, so the notice can clearly state whether the meeting is going to be in person, remote, or hybrid. And that will avoid any confusion.
Okay. Will do.
As far as Barbara, while you're there, as far as what Jason Edwards had to say about opening and then just postponing or tabling it, is there any good reason to consider that, or does that not work?
Well, I understand his concern. I empathize with his situation, but as I said before, I think that's problematic because I believe that people have been told that the public hearing is not, there is not going to be a public hearing tonight. So even opening it and continuing it is problematic. It's just
Hey,
an
Barbara,
unfortunate situation.
We've done this before where we opened a hearing, there was no testimony whatsoever. It was just opened and then continued. And there was nothing that was lost by that except that it started a different clock.
I just don't see how we could get away with not doing another notice, though.
Yeah,
well, if the people have 2 weeks, if they're told they can contact town hall, if it's put on the bulletin board of town hall, there are ways we can do this that wouldn't involve.
Lois, we're not doing as a commission anything.
Oh, I understand that. I'm trying to have the applicant.
We have statutes that have to be followed. So I don't know how much, flexibility there is with the statute.
I think the problem is the age gap. That they don't always understand, and you can't be held liable for people not understanding something that is routinely
done.
notice
That's
in
not
this
our
way.
concern.
Donna did a perfectly fine job.
That's,
I am not blaming Donna for this. This is obviously the way this has been handled, but it clearly caused a confusion. And frankly, when I look at it, it is confusing. If you get a notice that's in the mail that says that, and you don't have a clear understanding of how this is going to work, it's confusing, as shown by the fact that a bunch of people showed up in person at Town Hall tonight.
wait, hold on for a second, Barbara. Oh, not hold on. I don't mean to say it that way, but I'm just thinking of something. If in fact the notice is correct, and a bunch of people showed up at Town Hall because they didn't understand the notice, that's not really a problem for us. We just don't have no one has had the time to dig into whether the notice was correct, right?
I read the notice. It was forwarded to me, and the problem is that the notice says that the meeting will be held something, at Town Hall or virtually, and then will be specified in the agenda. But I think that's confusing.
Especially if someone has to go online. I don't know how often that has ever been done before, because someone would have to go online to get the agenda, to see the agenda.
Yeah.
I don't
assume
think
everybody has that
language,
capability.
I understand what the intent was, but I think it can be read two ways. It can be read the way that it was meant, which is we're letting you know that there's one of two options for this meeting. It's either going to be in person at Town Hall, or it's going to be held virtually. And in order to find out what it's going to be, you need to look at the agenda. Okay, it can be read that way, but I think it can also be read as it's going to be held at Town Hall and virtually. And that's the problem. It's confusing.
So I guess, hold on. Jason, 1 second. Jason, 1 second. Just let me, I want to finish my thought I had before we're in this discussion. So if we were to do what Jason Edwards requested, and then it's determined that everything was done correctly, then that would keep everything kind of on the right, rolling in the right direction. Where if we found out that the notice was wrong, then we have to, at the same token, we have to ask Jason Edwards to withdraw the application if we determine. So it's almost like, let's take this step just in case it's proper.
I'm telling you, Keith, I've already looked at it, and it's problematic.
Okay, so we have a problem.
I've looked at. I was sent the notice, and the problem is, hold on a second, because I'm happy to read what it says so that it's clear.
So the other question I need is, do I need to publish it again in the newspaper?
So hold on just a moment, please.
Okay.
The abutters notice says, please be advised, the enclosed legal notice contains public hearing information regarding an application submitted to the Inland Wetlands Department. And then it goes on to give, some information as to why these people are receiving it. Okay. And then trying to. And the actual notice says the Monroe Inland Wetlands Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Sorry, just a minute. This is on text, which is what is making it a little difficult here. either by remote access or in the town hall council chambers, 7 Fan Hill Road. The location, type of meeting will be listed on the meeting agenda.
Okay.
I think that's somewhat unclear.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
I think that, yes, it is very unclear, Barb, especially for people. I deal with a lot of old people a lot, and they do get confused. They don't always understand exactly what they read. My suggestion would be to do what Jason suggested, which was to open it and immediately continue it, hearing no testimony. Then somebody can make up a flyer, a simple flyer for everybody, and perhaps it can be distributed throughout the condominium complex, stating exactly what's going on and that nothing happened yet, and that there will be a public hearing next week, and they are to contact town hall to find out whether or not it will be remote or it will be in person, although I would bet that it's going to be remote. So that would be my suggestion. It's a simple flyer that's very simply stated, no legalese, and something that couldn't be misunderstood. Just an idea.
Lois, from a practical standpoint, it's a good idea, but my concern is that it could end up prejudicing the applicant in the end, because if you were to approve the application and somebody appealed, that might not hold muster. That's my concern.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have run into some problems with, they have to send out certified mailing for a reason, so that they know that everybody got the notice. So now you have to hire basically someone who's almost serving, legal papers to 163 people. It's gonna cost more than what it costs to do the mailing for the whoever's gonna do this, Jason, do you want something to say?
I mean, yeah, the notice went out and clearly everyone received the notice. So they are aware that a public hearing is ongoing and was opened up tonight. So they've been notified. In a normal situation, we may have taken testimony and then a new hearing date would be set, but no more notifications would go out. So in this case, I'm not really clear as to why that same process can't be followed. If we're not even giving testimony, all we're doing is continuing the hearing, that they have certainly know the hearing's ongoing, they can check with the town hall to find out where it's going to be.
Right. I mean, if that's what the commission wants to do, I suppose we can do it. Maybe it's something I can look into a little further. And if it's necessary, if I continue to feel that strongly about it, I suppose, as Keith mentioned previously, the application could be withdrawn and resubmitted. But perhaps we can rectify it this way. I still have a concern, but I'm willing to go forward in that manner with that understanding if the applicant agrees.
It's fine with us.
If you think that will not cause us any, legal problems.
Well, as I said, if I later determine that it will, then I think the way to rectify that situation is the application can be withdrawn and refiled, and we start again. So perhaps that's the best way to handle it.
Okay, so now let me ask you this. If we're going to go this route, what about the other two? Now, obviously, the Housatonic Valley Rail Trail is a in-house kind of situation. It's a town presenting. Is that, Scott, you want to?
Yeah, I do want to speak. Yeah, it's a federally funded project, and we will be renoticing it. I am not taking the chance on that. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's got to be renoticed.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from the applicant for 10 and 36 Main Street.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, state your name for the
Hello.
record, please.
This is Chris Pulowski with Solely Engineering, offices located at 501 Main Street, here on behalf of the applicant for 10 and 36 Main Street. We're currently discussing the notices. If you would just give us 1 second, we will decide on which way we would like to move forward.
All right. You could just chime in when you guys are done. We'll continue talking about the, oh, Chris, you're a caller and a, never mind. I thought I saw it. Sorry, never mind, I'm confused. All right, so Barbara, we want to proceed.
Yeah.
It's okay to proceed that way?
Well, as I said, I'm not sure it's okay to proceed that way, but
For us to
I'm
proceed tonight,
willing.
is it okay?
I'm willing to let it proceed that way with the understanding I'll look into this further, and if I determine that it's still problematic, the applicant is going to have to start again. Is that, can we move forward with that understanding?
I think so. So Jason Edwards, can you please state your name again for the record and confirm that you're okay with this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is Jason Edwards, J. Edwards Associates, Engineers Surveyors, representing the application for 1271 Monroe Turnpike. And we request that the commission open the hearing and immediately close it. We feel the notices were sent properly, and we are open to reconsidering that opinion based on Barbara Schellenberg's opinion later in the week, I guess.
And withdrawing. Can you just state that? And just state that we
are if requested.
Withdraw,
yes.
And also just call out the application number, please.
I've got to find that.
Okay, it's IWC 2021-09.
IWC 2021-09 is the application.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, this is Jim Morgantine again from High Meadows.
Yes.
Can I, at a minimum, ask that at least our association be notified when this comes up for hearing again? If you're not going to mail it to all 138, could you at least mail it to the association?
Yeah, I'll be sure to do that. And I can even put a sign out there if you want. I can put a sign at the end of the driveway.
Well, I don't think the majority of our owners want to participate, okay. But as the president of the association, I at least want to observe the hearing.
Yeah, I'll be sure to notice you. Yes.
And James, this is going to be on the published agenda. So if you're, seeing how you're the neighboring property, you keep an eye on the agenda, and you'll be that'll keep you, up to date as to anything that's going to happen. And I guess as a courtesy, I think the commission can also reach out to you and let you know what Attorney Schellenberg's decision is going to be, which will probably be within the next, I assume, week or so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. You have my address. I would very much appreciate if I could be contacted.
You got it. You shall. Okay, so do we want to just jump ahead and do that, or do you want to find out what 10 and 36 Main Street wanted?
Mr. Commissioner, if I may speak.
Yes.
On behalf of the applicants for IWC 2021-11, 10, and 36 Main Street, we request that the commission immediately open the public hearing and immediately close it. We agree with our fellow applicants that the notice was issued properly, and we accept the risk of, in case it was not, that we have to withdraw the application and restart.
Okay, and did you state the application number?
Yes, IWC 2021-11.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, I believe what the request is that the public hearings be opened and continued, not closed.
Yes, correct.
Right. Continued, yes. All right.
Excuse me, then I seek to just modify that to immediately open and then continue the public hearing for IWC 2021-11.
Okay.
Thank you.
Barbara, last question. Who makes that?
Yes.
Who says it? The applicant is going to say that as soon as I open it, that they want to continue it? Who makes that request? Like, who states that for the record?
Well, it's the commission's decision whether to continue the public hearing.
Okay, so do we have to make a motion on that for each one?
You should make a motion, yes.
All right, so when I do this, so let me be prepared to make the motion. So public hearings on the B regulated activities, number 6, IWC 2021-09, 1271 Monroe Turnpike, multi-age restricted development. Did I say that right? With associated site improvements. The applicant may speak.
I've got nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Someone like to make a motion to continue this?
I move
Motion.
that we open this application and hear no testimony and continue it to our next meeting.
Well, it is open, but I guess, does that matter? I just opened it.
Well, okay, all right, so that I move that we continue this without hearing any testimony to the next meeting.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to continue this application to the next meeting without any testimony? Have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Hall, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, Pat. Commissioner Stewart, were you an aye on that?
I'm waiting.
Oh, you're waiting. Okay. So we have any opposed? We have one opposed. Any abstentions? All right. So the motion passes 5-1 with Commissioner Stewart objecting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're on to IWC 2021-010 has decided to, I guess, withdraw and reapply with proper noticing. IWC 2021-11, 10 and 36 Main Street, excavation of fill application to repair property.
Keith, can I interrupt? It's Scott Schatzline.
Yes.
I don't believe we're withdrawing. I mean, we're on the agenda. We're going to renotice and start our public hearing once the renotice is properly kicked in. Is that correct, Barbara? That's legitimate.
My understanding is the public hearings are being opened and continued. And then the question is, I will determine if that's a proper way to proceed. If I determine it's a proper way to proceed, then it will go forward at the next meeting. If not, then the applications are going to have to be refiled so that notices are sent out to the abutters again. That's the issue.
Right. But what I want to do, what I want to do is I don't want to open the hearing. I just want to leave it on the agenda and renotice it. I don't want to withdraw it. I don't see any need to withdraw.
No, you don't have to. That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to.
Okay, so how do I cover that on the agenda? Like, what was the words I should have used? I said withdrawn. I should have said something else. So
the opening of the hearing is postponed.
Postponed.
Right.
That's what I'll do. I'll restate it for the record. So IWC 2021-10, Housatonic Valley Trail, connecting existing rail trail, Wolf Park's existing trail near Maple Drive, is opening is being postponed. Is that good for everybody? The hearing opening being postponed?
Yes, that's good for me, and we'll renotice it so we're good on the next when we open it.
Thank you. Okay, so
that's
IWC. Sorry, IWC 2021-11, 10 and 16 Main Street, excavation fill application, repair property for the future site development. The hearing is open. The applicant has anything to say?
No, we have no further comment. Looking to continue the hearing.
Do we have a motion to continue this hearing?
I move that we continue this hearing to the next meeting, hearing no testimony at this one.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gringras. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Nay. All right, so five Joanne. 5 yeses and 1 no. Anybody abstaining? No. So motion passes. All right. Enforcement. Oh, we did this already. No, we didn't. We stopped halfway through. We didn't finish it. So we have IWV 2019-15, 13A Monroe Turnpike, disturbance within an upland review area. We have new information on this. Anyone?
Okay, well, I knew that Joe was supposed to talk to Attorney Fedor today, and they are looking to, they're having someone come and hire someone to do the remediation work, or I guess. So it's still being discussed at this point. I thought she was going to be on, but I guess not.
So wait, remediation work. Was the remediation already spelled out? I don't remember.
No. She was, but she was there. This was, and I really shouldn't be reporting on it because I don't know the specifics, but I believe that this was one that they had. She's the.
Donna, I just got back on. If you are you talking about
Laurel
13?
Laurel Fedor?
Yep.
Yes. No.
Okay.
Did you talk to Laurel?
No, I left her a message. I didn't get her.
All right. So no action on this at the moment. Is that correct?
Not at this time. No.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So remediation submissions. None. Application hearing determinations, none. Lois, I was not here, but you guys didn't do anything other than open the meeting before I got on, right? Okay, so on bond release reduction and reports, IWC 2019-12R for Main Street, I'm recusing myself on that. And also on time extension, IWC 2016-16. I'm going to recuse myself on that one. So if you guys want to take care of those two while I'm gone, or do you want to jump back on and off? I mean, is that?
Let's call the commission. Who would like to hold it off till the end of the meeting? And who would like to do it now?
What I meant to say is that instead, there's Bridge Road in the middle on the agenda.
Right. We could, if we changed the agenda and did Bridge Road now, and then held off on the other two to the end, and you could recuse yourself at that point. You've done that before.
Right. Okay. That's fine.
Is the rest of the commission okay with that?
Yep. Good. Everybody good? All right. Okay. All right. That's what we'll do then. Great. IWC 2019-055 Bridge Road bond release request $11,000.
You should have received a bond report recommendation in your packets.
I move that we follow our agent's recommendation to reduce the bond to $1,000 pending further work. That is a motion.
Motion. Okay. Motion from Commissioner Spence to reduce the bond to $1,000. Second? Second. Second from Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're on to skipping discussion. None. Deliberation on completed hearings. None. IBC agent activity reports. I'll just read through these real quick. Agent approvals, IA 2021-19, 44 Dingley Bell Road, generator underground propane tank. IAA 2021-20, 115 Booth Hill Road, backyard is in Monroe, removal of trees and upland review area. IAA 2021-21, 556 Pepper Street, septic repair. IAA 2021-22, 345 Fan Hill Road, cell tower. 14 permitted uses as right. IPU 2018-01, Department of Public Works, road repair, replacement, or general maintenance. IW regulations sections 4.2C expires 3/28/2023. Enforcement deliberation. No public input. Deliberations on completed remediation submissions or items from this agenda. IWC 2021-06R 64 Cambridge Drive, remediation to entail earthwork, drainage, and upland enhancements to restore previous watershed drainage patterns to the eastern wetland system. Okay. How do we want to start off with this?
You were emailed, Keith, I don't know if you heard, but you were emailed a new draft this evening that came from Attorney Marino, who helped with some wording. And if you want to go by point and decide how you want to, if you want to keep wording, change wording, set some dates, discuss bonding.
Okay, I'm trying to load that up right now. I wasn't aware.
I've been trying to read through that version of it. There is either some formatting problems with it, or I have trouble reading. But the previous version was much easier to follow. This latest version.
I think the formatting needs a little work, but again, you can go through it.
We had, okay, so I want to go through it this way. But I thought I printed myself out a copy of the original draft. I can't find it.
I don't believe this is usable. Sorry, but it loses the purpose.
Okay, let's just take a look here. So what we're main concerned is the conditions at this point, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, oh no. Okay, so I have two of these open now. I don't know which one I'm supposed to look at. Revised.
The heading should read draft approval for site restoration and resolution of notice of violation.
Both, I can either look at the same exact thing twice on my computer, or I don't know. I guess I'd have to go to the conditions page and see if there's, because I had one open that was sent earlier and I can't see the difference.
There is.
I want to make sure I'm following the right one.
We need revision numbers on these things. So.
Yeah, that would help.
So this is the only one, Donna, that says draft approval for site restoration?
No, I'm looking at both, they draft. But one of mine has a draft in gray and one has a draft in pink. But I don't know if that's my computer or that was how it was sent to me.
I don't know what the pink is.
Oh, no, it's my computer, sorry.
As long as if it has a watermark with draft on it, then that's the one you should be looking at. The other ones did not have a watermark.
Oh, okay. All right, so then I guess I have both of them open up for some reason. Okay, so, I have two of them open up, I should say. All right, so starting at the top or I shouldn't say the top, but page 4 of 7, right? Is that where we all want to start?
That says 4 of 9.
Mine says 4 of 7. Take our time, make sure everybody's in the right spot.
The one I'm looking at was emailed to us at 4:17 p.m. today. that the same one everyone's looking at?
And you have 9 pages?
Well, now when I look at it online here, it says 7. That's it. Okay. I'm going to go back to the one online that says 7. I'm with you now.
Now, what I wanted to have was okay. So I guess part A, 2A. Or something, one completes that file drives. So A1, or I'm sorry, AI, swale construction detail, which was something that was stated at the last meeting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, but didn't we not say that they had to make an application to bring us that? So to bring us that, you have to make an application to present this amended, I guess it's going to be an amendment to the plans, the approved plans. So they actually have to form a formal application for that, correct? It's not just adding a detail.
The note I had from the meeting said wanted them to, the swale shall be built to specifications approved by the town engineer and presented to the commission at a future application hearing.
That's exactly what this should say. Exactly just like that.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. And I don't think there's anything else. And I don't think there's anything extra there.
I think we still need to put that it should be a modification or an amendment to the approval. Otherwise, it sounds like it doesn't necessarily have to be separate.
Right. Well, it's a fulfilling a condition, but I don't mind the problem. I don't have a problem with that wording either. If anybody has a problem.
Well,
Is that good with everybody?
Not yet.
It should tie in like Lois said.
I had more paperwork and I can't find it right now. Oh, come on.
Yeah. Oh, here it is.
Oh, first of all, I have to say, on very first page under the draft approval wording, and it says application type. This was not a public hearing. We cannot write that it was a public hearing.
Okay, we'll note that. I don't want to get everybody jumping all over this thing. If you don't mind.
I have some issues actually. Surprise, surprise. With this proceeding at all, because I read very carefully the court case that Mr. Marino cited to give us permission to proceed. And I don't think I tried calling him this afternoon to talk about it, and I didn't receive a phone call back. But I'm not reading it the same way he is. And I'm a little concerned that if we do continue, that we're opening ourselves up for issues that we don't necessarily have to have. So,
well, let's share your legal opinion with Attorney Schellenberg and have her determine whether if our proceedings are going to get us in any order.
Oh. Well, sorry, having some trouble with my camera there. So I understand Commissioner Spence's concerns. Attorney Marino and I discussed this at length. I agree with his opinion, but I don't believe that his opinion is that this is 100% crystal clear. Obviously, I was not at the last meeting, so I can't. I mean, he updated me on it, but I don't believe that's what he told the commission. I do agree that the case seems to indicate that a commission can act in the way that he opined. But again, it's not 100% clear. We're not, and I want to make that point very clear. We are not saying for sure that we are absolutely confident that if this matter is appealed, that a judge may see it differently. But we do feel that there is a basis in the law that this is a case that supports the position that the commission here does have the jurisdiction to deliberate and make a decision on this application as a remediation application. And I think Attorney Marino made that language clear in the draft approval, because you are not granting a permit application. So that's the understanding. You are acting pursuant to the issuance of an NOV. And that's why the language in this draft approval reflects that.
The reason I am so conflicted with this is that this decision that I'm reading never says that they issued a permit for regulated activity in the beginning. It says they approved a plan, but then the conditional plan was that they fully knew that there was going to be a follow-up application, and that then they scheduled a public hearing and it went through all the due process. It did not say that that was allowed on the first approval of the plan, because there were 3 parties involved. This is not, I really don't see a lot of similarity here.
But look, that was, yes, for that particular situation, but the court did agree with the approval of a plan, a remediation plan that was based on resolving an NOV. That's the point of that case.
Understood.
No, it's not on, you know, all fours with our situation, but it does stand for that proposition.
But what it doesn't do is say that that first approval authorized regulated activity. No regulated activity was permitted until after they went through the permit process. And at the last meeting, I asked Mr. Marino if our approval of this plan meant that they had the go-ahead to start work. He said yes. And that's not what happened, as I read it, in this decision. Now, my thought was, why put ourselves in a position to be possibly appealed on due process when we can just start over, deny it for whatever reason, and start over so that we don't set ourselves up. Well, if it gets appealed, yeah, well, it's going to get appealed. Okay. But we got to protect the town. And it would be much easier if we went through the correct process from the very beginning and not have to have that kind of, well, we think, you know, well, we should be able to. We shouldn't have to do that. We should do it right.
Okay, so Commissioner Spence,
that's my opinion. So
you can make a motion for staff to draft a decision of denial if you like to, or we keep moving on. I mean, we got to get through this stuff one way or another. So if that's what you want to do, go ahead and make a motion.
I will. I move that staff draft a denial approval. No, a letter of denial based on the fact that due process was not done.
Okay, we have a motion.
I don't know how else to word it.
Do we have a motion here? Does it have a second?
Motion dies.
Okay, so.
Okay.
No, motion dies, I guess. I never had that happen before, so I don't know what to say, but, okay. So moving along on, under A. So we have a correction on I, which was the swale construction detail. As I follow along, I'm also looking at the original draft. Number 2 on the original draft is detailed dust mitigation plan for all work performed at 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence Drive, but on the draft we have in front of us from today, there is II, which is executive summary shall have some added information about the provided calculations for attenuation of conditions for the period of time during construction, filling restoration measures in order to list results verifying no net increase in peak discharge during any point in time, results from the construction HydroCAD report. The plans shall be revised so that the intended attenuation for up to 100-year storm can be contained within the basin volumes. Note that basins, ponds 1C, 1D, and 1E overtop the spillways during the 100-year storms. Okay, could someone explain to me what this is and where it came from?
I think I can.
Keith, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know who that was.
Oh,
but,
you're the man to answer this one. Go right
yeah.
ahead.
Items Roman numeral 2 through 10 came from me. And typically, I like the applicant to address these things and work these things out before you get to the point where you're making a motion to approve. It gets very messy, and as you can see, it's very wordy. There's a lot of.
Hold on, Scott, can I interrupt you just for a second? Were these comments things that you had presented while the hearing was open or the application was open and were not addressed? Because these are supposed to be our conditions, that's the way I understand it.
That's correct. That's correct. They were presented to you in my comments, which are dated revised to 6/8/21. I provided these comments and I provided a bond recommendation. Now, I was anticipating that they would be discussed at a hearing, and either I'd be asked to clarify or comment on them. Next thing I knew, you guys are looking at a draft approval. So I was asked to kind of mold my comments into something that would fit into an approval letter, as opposed to just being a comment for the commission. So they're reworded basically to read as conditions as opposed to comments, which is a bit difficult. They're very technical in nature and take some doing afterward to address those. I wasn't at the hearing. Yeah.
I'm a little confused. So the way I always understood it, and I don't know how, okay, so the way I understood is when you have comments on a plan and you send them back to the engineers or the applicant's engineer, they address those things and it's a communication between the two of you in a way, right?
Well, that's correct, except that in a situation where everything isn't resolved, those comments are still on the table for your consideration. And typically what would happen is if they're still outstanding, the commission should be saying to the applicant, are you comfortable with those comments? Can you address all of that information after the fact? And if they say, yeah, we had discussions with the town engineer and we feel comfortable with that and we can work that out afterward, that's good. So be it. You can make them into conditions. When you have comments like these that are very technical, and there's quite a few of them, then I would think the applicant would be concerned about that and would say, well, I need to work on it some more and work that out. We'll see you at the next meeting.
All right. So I think the way I understand it then is when the applicant closed their application, right? They had no further, I would assume then it was their understanding that any of these conditions that you were discussing with them, they didn't bring them up in the meeting as they wanted something else. So I guess it's an understanding that these are acceptable and now they're being written in as conditions.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
We can't ask them now, it's closed. I was just surprised to see all this technical stuff that, I know the applicant put a lot of work into this project. It's a massive project. And I just was like,
well, Some of it sounds like it, again, it's technical, so it's hard to put it in words or in writing.
Right.
So it gets a little wordy. Some of this stuff has already been addressed. It's just that because I don't have the final report in front of me, I have to put it in your letter. As I said, they've already addressed it, and it's very time consuming and expensive to redo the drainage calculation, the whole thing. So sometimes they prefer to, okay, put it in the approval letter, even though we've kind of already, they're telling me they addressed it already. And they deal with it at the end. So no big deal. I would suggest just leaving it in.
So I just want to say that in some of these, in a correspondence that I got from the attorney, there were some questions of whether some of this stuff should be in the wetlands decision, I guess is the best way I want to say it. And also, if it has to be, one thing I don't want to say scared, it's not the right word, but I was concerned with was having an approval letter with a ton of conditions in it. And is there, I guess I have two questions. One is that I think there were comments from Vin Marino about some of these things that are in this draft. And the other thing is, since they have to go to, is any of this stuff really a P&Z matter that's just kind of being redundant?
Well, it is. What happens here is I usually, because it's a big report and quite involved, I usually review it for the Inland Wetlands Commission and iron it out at that point. Gives me more time too, because we have the P&Z process which follows. You're right in that, is this really specifically applicable to the wetlands application? It's indirectly applies to it, but I can resolve this as part of the planning and zoning follow-up. So if these are not in your letter, then they can be addressed and resolved as part of the planning and zoning process. I don't have an issue with that, unless it's something that is directly impacting your wetland in terms of the discharge. There are sometimes some drainage issues which have more direct impact. So make a long story short, I don't have to have these comments in here. I don't think the commission has to have them in there if you're concerned about that. They could be ironed out, hopefully before the end of the P&Z, and if they're not, they could be part of the planning and zoning.
I feel more comfortable going that route. Now, of course, like you just said, if something of these is really specifically to the wetlands matters, and you think that this is your only opportunity to have it be addressed with this, what's the word? This approval, okay, then let's point those out for us to look at and understand them, at least digest them. But my feeling is that to have those in there, if they're going to come up with at P&Z, because not only that, maybe at P&Z, there might be an opportunity for them to be fully digested into that application. Instead of it just being a condition here, it could be kind of like they have some time maybe to mold it into the P&Z application.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the issues of the day were really focused on the environmental and a lot of the questions and issues that came up as part of your application. I don't think they've spent a real lot of time or concern about my drainage comments. So I would suggest, given your input, which I think is good, that they be replaced with just a general statement that you as a commission are suggesting that the town engineer's comments be addressed as part of the planning and zoning process, and that that way you're calling attention to the fact that I had provided comments, but you're deferring that to the other commission.
I think that's excellent. I was thinking along the same line. So I think that'll help us a lot to get through this. Thank you, Scott. Anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Okay.
But if that's the case, then under A1 there, I, swale construction detail should be removed and kept back in our document.
That stays with us. Commissioner Hall, that stays with us because that was ours.
Right. So
That
we
was
would
our commission's.
2 through 10.
Right. Right. That's what I
Except
see.
that number 8, the generalized construction sequence notes being expanded. As far as our monitoring function, I think I would like to see that remain.
Well, I think we're gonna expand on the details of the monitoring.
Yes.
Based on some comments.
If we can do that, I'm okay with removing the.
Okay, we'll just make sure that I mean, we can solidify the removal of 2 through 10 after we get through the rest of the list. Okay, so we were on 2. I guess it's at 2. Let me see. B, actually, on the. I'm sorry, I'm not following the right one. Yes, B, detailed dust mitigation plan for all work performed 64 Cambridge Ford Drive. That's exactly how it was worded, I believe, at the last meeting. So nothing has changed there. Does anybody have anything to add? We could also obviously make that, I don't know if that's part of the third party reviewer I think a lot of stuff is gonna be covered by that, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Commissioner Stewart, do you have something to say?
Yeah, the only comment I would have about these is the way the motion's written. A talks about the following revisions and notations, right? So then it gives 1 through 10. And then it starts with these additional changes. So there needs to be a heading for that, because when you say detailed dust mitigation plan for all work, it doesn't say they've got to do it anywhere. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't say they need to provide it. You understand what I'm saying?
I think I understand what you mean, but I think there is. I'm sorry, Commissioner Hall, go ahead.
I think if they'd gone with the original flow and hadn't inserted the engineering, Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm just saying that these may need to be I through whatever to make it make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my only comment. So it needs to be reformatted so that it makes sense.
But you're not concerned that it's well, if it's on the plans, it has to be implemented. That's not what your concern was, Commissioner Stewart, right? Implementation of the plan. That wasn't your concern. It was something else.
No, I just wanted to be clear on in the motion that this is a condition of approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at A is really the covering paragraph that B should be right under swale construction to rely on that first paragraph to do what Jim's talking about. Basically included in the plans.
Right. Okay.
I think the statement is good as long as we cover that in monitoring. A plan is great. Execution is the real important part.
Okay, so moving along here, C, all soil placed on top of the liner will be clean natural material, exactly as worded in our discussion last meeting. D, access shall be granted Illinois Commission. I'm sorry.
Do we want to include a certain amount of actual topsoil, not just clean natural material?
Are you sure it's not on a detail?
I don't think so. I
They're
don't remember seeing topsoil. Does anybody else remember seeing real soil, not just rocks?
Have a bond to topsoil and seed the whole entire thing. I'm assuming it's in there somewhere. I haven't looked exactly, but bond request.
That's instrumental to cleaning the water enough to bring it into the wetlands. If you don't have that soil to filter the water, the whole thing is moot. So.
Well, I
just
don't want to add a condition that's already in the plan. So if you could check and see that there's not a detail or anything that shows tops. I'm just
That's
saying.
not going to happen at this point in the program.
Right, but I see how there was a bond request for like hundreds of thousands of dollars for topsoil to be placed and the whole thing to be seeded. I can't imagine that wasn't part of the plan, because that would have been part of the I'm sure that Scott would have picked up on that when he was doing the calculation to put the bonded value on topsoil and seeding the whole site. But I could be wrong.
It's not a problem reiterating something that's already on the plan. If you're not sure that it's on the plan, it's not a problem by reiterating it, really. If they say, well, it's on the plan, then great, it's on the plan.
Conditions on everything that's on the plan, that would almost sound like we're not doing our homework.
No, there's certain things that are very important, and that happens to be one of them. So I read these things.
No big deal to list that. You can do that. Planning and zoning requires a minimum of 6 inches of topsoil.
Yeah.
So it is required by the planning and zoning process that they put in topsoil. The topsoil that's in my bond isn't necessarily for performance purposes. It's for site stabilization. In this case, it's not like there's a development with lots of impervious area, so the whole thing would be topsoil. So yeah. But I've always been a proponent of if in doubt, put it in there, because at least you're saying what you want, better to be safe than sorry.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, so all said, so that one hasn't changed. Now, if we want it, we can come back to that, Lois, and ask what everybody thinks about that. But I want to get through what we have in front of us first, and then any additions we'll do at the end, if that's okay. So we're at D, which is access shall be granted to commission for records related to the import and processing of soil and clean fill used at the site. That is same as we discussed last meeting. 5, monitoring will be done I'm going to, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually by a neutral third-party professional approved by Inland Wetlands Commission. The professional will develop inspection criteria and provide written reports to Inland Wetlands Commission. I think that kind of says it all, because we're going to vet out hopefully a few like we did last time, and we have, outside of this written condition, we have an open flow, I would say an open discussion in a way to make what's the word? Sculpt the criteria, right? As we discussed with the potential professionals that we're going to interview. But we have to start with what their recommendations, because that's what they do, day in, day out. They monitor these big, construction and remediation projects all over the place, and they kind of have, something they work with. They'll probably present that to us, and we'll either be satisfied or unsatisfied. But I think to put a lot of details into this decision doesn't make a lot of professional sense to me. But we're covered because we have this third-party professional. Does that make sense?
Which wording are you using, Keith? Because there was another. Did anybody get this one with all the yellow on it? These were recommendations for refinement of some of the conditions.
I'm going off of the draft that we got today, I believe. I'm reading the draft that we got today.
Oh.
Commissioner Hall, you're on mute. Commissioner Hall, you're on mute. You're speaking. We can't hear you.
Okay. I think I'm more looking at the same one Lois is looking at for the comment, going back to the basic notes. And that paragraph there, E, is about half of what was in the original notes. But I hear what you're saying about the third party defining what will be involved in the monitoring.
Right.
If we're to go with that, shouldn't we state something here more specifically about engaging that third party, who pays for that third party, how long we have to get the third party in place?
It doesn't say that, but it has to be before they start work. And since they have to give us this, I think, did we say in the decision, they had 270 days, right, to come up with a swale? But I think I might have heard 90 days somewhere else.
I don't know that we ever determined that. I think there was a lot of things thrown around, but I don't think we ever came up with a solid answer.
But I would assume that it would have to be eminent to have this third party people. I mean, as soon as a draft approval is written and signed off, I think that's got to happen. It's a requirement for the pre-construction meeting. That's what happens with this. All these conditions have to be met before the pre-construction meeting, so they're going to get right on it. I believe that I saw it somewhere that it's the responsibility of the applicant to pay for that.
I know it was in the one that the recommended edits. What I had down here was monitoring. The applicant will provide funds for, and something we have to decide, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual inspection by a neutral third party company with the proper certifications to be chosen and hired by the IWC. This company will develop inspection criteria to be approved by the IWC and provide written and verbal reporting to the IWC agent and the commission at regular public meetings. The inspection will include performance of the well and pumping, restoration progress of all included wetlands and vernal pools, and other criteria to be determined by the third-party company within XX days of approval.
That's this one. Right. Okay. So.
And what we need to refine on this is you can't give an approval, really, I think, without having the funds. Well, I don't know that.
I think it's understood, or we'll have to make sure it's written in there at the applicant's or property owner's expense, right? Same vetting process that we had for when we hired Russ, okay? And but I think that we need to let them tell us what needs to be done, what they do.
I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. We're the ones that are responsible for this to happen. We have to determine what we want as criteria. I mean, they can tell you what the process should be and timing and stuff like that, but
they have Mr. Spence, the only reason why I'm going to say contradict that is because this is what they do. That's a profession. They must have dozens and dozens of governing bodies that they have to meet the criteria for their reporting. They have way more knowledge and way more. If they got more things they could think of than all of us put together could think of ways of doing it. So
understood.
I think it's best to have them tell us that, of the other 30 jobs that we've done like this in the past 5 years, this is what we've set forth as how we're going to monitor this thing, and this is how we're going to report to you, and this is all the tests we're going to take and everything else. And let's hear that first, because we have to agree to the proposal. We have to pick a proposal. So let's figure it out at that point. Well, we're going to try to guess now.
I'm not disagreeing, but you wouldn't want to have a wetlands biologist trying to tell you how the monitoring wells are performing. It's a different set of expertise. So that's why I'm saying that if you have a whole company, if you have one person, he doesn't, and he or she isn't qualified for one thing, they don't have.
We're picking a third party monitoring company. Okay, if they don't have what we want, they don't get to present us a proposal.
Okay, so you're talking about an entire company and they would have
Of course,
whatever
that's it.
experts.
You have to
Okay.
hire a professional company that does this monitoring. You know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. These, you know, just like, you know, all those companies were all very, very good, well-known companies that came to the table and gave us proposals, right? They all kind of worked in the same, you know, range, so to speak. So we picked the one we like, and we can also make adjustments. If someone has a good case for some particular test that they want to see or some kind of thing, we ask for it. We can't figure it all out right here, right now, because we don't know, we don't even have any idea what these people do. I mean, maybe Chris Hall.
Yeah, maybe there's a middle path here in that when we do go to engage this third party, we will have to give them a request for proposal. Yes. And some of the items that Lois and I are both concerned about would be in that request for proposal, so that we would ask them to respond to these things as part of their proposal, which then we go back to your view, is that we're going to get the right people and the right items in their proposal.
That's adding for asking for something in the proposal. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be in this decision letter though. That's a proposal. The proposal is a different document. The request for proposal is a different document that isn't really part of this decision letter.
Correct. I agree there, but we will get answers to what they'll cover through that request.
Of course.
We just need to make sure in here that we have enough detail. I'd like to see detail that says they pay, that the applicant pays. A couple of other pieces in here to just make sure we're well-rounded enough.
I think we had discussed
it gets
that.
tied back to A. We've got to change the sequencing here because it's definitely a subset of A, and then that covers a multitude of sins right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes 2 under A, and then we've got a covering paragraph. I apologize. I spent a lifetime with contracts, so
yeah. What's the word here? The format definitely needs some work. So yes, that what has to be noted under E is that at the cost of the property owner, applicant, however you want to put that in. That's one little snippet that definitely should be there. I know that we had discussed it during the course of this process before we got to this letter, so it shouldn't be a surprise.
Keith, did you get this?
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Well, I'm looking. I have 4. I'm going through 4 different paper ones and the one on my screen, and I'm trying to keep it all straight.
I know there's a lot of confusion here.
Yeah.
Would it be easier if we started off the one that Donna actually provided initially, and then once we have that all hammered out, let Vin do his or Barbara, whoever it is.
I'm doing them concurrently. And the original one that was sent out, which based off of our notes from our last meeting, right? There's not much wording change between that and the one that was sent today. There was a bunch of other things added elsewhere, but and we're catching stuff. So let's just continue to go through what was sent today and catch things. Like we already caught, you know, a couple things. One being, you know, who pays for this, and you know, there was something else. So as F was R6 is now F. It will include performance of well and pumping, restoration prior, all include wetlands and vernal pools. So that's actually, F should be merged with E, because it's actually just like almost like a comma kind of from. So 5 and 6 should be merged together.
E and F in this case.
Yes, E and I'm sorry, yeah, E and F should be merged together, and a lot of F is actually would also be part, almost all of it would be part of that the letter request for proposal.
Right.
But I think that could be in there because those are two big things, you know. Well, we have a permit out for a well and pumping, and obviously we're concerned about the progress of the wetlands and vernal pools. So I think those are probably the two most noteworthy things that we're generally, I mean, basically the last part, restoration progress of the wetlands and vernal pools, is ultimately our objective. Okay, so back now to G, which was 7. Following a final commission approved plans about the final plan. This is just a housekeeping thing, right? And then we now have so this part here, G, I'm sorry, H. I'm not seeing this in the original draft. Donna?
Oh, that was part of B. That was on the original of Donna's. It's on number B. It got
I
moved
see.
up.
Okay, I got you. All right. Never mind.
Boy, is this confusing. Holy moly.
Yeah. So everything else from here is just the boilerplate stuff, right?
God,
Except for obviously the bottom out.
What happened to the deep permit and the liner?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff missing.
Yeah.
All right, the liner.
Go
Doesn't
back-
that come? Where was that first? What's that? In our
Back in
notes?
the original notes, permits was number 4 and liner was number 8.
We have liner though.
Where?
Yeah, we have liners. Also, a place on top of the liner will be clean natural material. That's a condition.
My fault. My bad.
And then I think the other one about the DEP is I thought we discussed that was a P&Z issue.
No, it's not. We were
not?
told that we could we were told that we could require that they seek all applicable approvals from all applicable agencies, including but not limited to deep P&Z.
Oh, it's right here. It's right here. M.
Mhm.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I see deep for something else. That's for native plant stuff.
There's also a matter of if it's necessary, and I don't know if it is or not, it depends on what's happened. Dewatering requires permits and it requires all kinds of approvals. And so does water diversion. When you're diverting water from one place to another, I believe there's permits required. So that's something that we have to have in there that must
So
receive
you're talking about water
necessary
diversion
approvals.
within our concerned area, because they've already explained all that on the plans.
Well, you know what the difference is now? I've been thinking that, remember when the hole was full of water to start with? They emptied it by pumping it into the detention basin on Independence. And then it emptied into the wetland 1 and flooded out wetland 1. So they stopped pumping it into the detention basin. So how do we know after 5 inches of rain that we got this weekend that hole isn't full again? Where are they going to put it? What are they going to do with the water? If it is full of water, what are they going to do with it? We have to
pump
plan
it
for
out.
that.
They have to pump it
Where?
out.
You don't just pump water indiscriminately.
It's not in it's not in their plan where they're going to pump the water to, sedimentation basin or anything.
You can't put that entire hole in a sedimentation basin.
So
if it's full, and it very well might be. So I'm just, throwing it out there. There's a lot of things that we really haven't thought about.
So that's a site condition that I understand what you're saying, and I know it's a large volume of water, but I didn't specifically look for it, but I can't imagine that they would have missed that.
You can't imagine?
You can't fill in. I don't think that they're going to flood fill. Maybe they are. Maybe their plan is to use water to help settle out the material. They're just going to doze the dirt right into water.
I
don't
have
know.
no idea. All I know is that if they pump it anywhere, we should know, because everything around there empties into our wetlands. So if they empty it anywhere, it's going to go right into our wetlands. And that's going to affect them. The wetlands, that is.
Well, we're asking for water to be returned to the wetlands, obviously under a controlled situation.
Well, it already is, but that's, as you know, we were told that there's no hydrologic connection there.
My point being is rainwater that if the place had never been disturbed from natural, that water, same water would have been shedding. I don't know if it's groundwater or rainwater, so there's probably some of both right now. That would have been shedding off into that wetlands anyways, right?
Not if it ended up in the pit.
No, I'm saying before the pit was made, that same rain that filled the pit, let's say this past weekend, would have ran off into the wetlands from gravity, from natural water flow.
Before the pit, it would have been absorbed by 70 acres of natural material.
It would have been watershed, right? Some of it would have been absorbed and some of it would watershed. It would all go downhill one way or another, whether it was through the soil or on the surface. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not trying to say it's that we missed something, or that they missed something, or that they didn't miss something. I don't know. I didn't think of it.
They're building multiple stormwater detention basins for this. So,
right.
I mean,
What happens if the hole is full now?
Excuse me?
What happens if the hole is full now?
Well, they're gonna have to build these things before they start pumping out the area. They've got to do sediment erosion control work before they start. That's the first thing you do.
I thought they had a pump on the plan showing them lifting the water up from the pit. I thought. But then that was the first hydration. That was the first hydration plan. They were going to pump the water out of the pit to rehydrate the way and go uphill with it, wasn't it? Wasn't that how they were going to get the water there with the mechanical pump?
That was the first concept, I think. But then it was determined that that's probably not a really good idea because of water quality issue.
But if we look at item K in this list on page 9, it discusses at some length sedimentation and erosion control and may give us sufficient language to answer your question, Lois. Concern.
I thought it was covered in their presentation. Specifically, though, Lois added a condition, though. You have a big rain event, and now there's 5 more feet of water in the thing, or what happens from the first time they pump it. But I do know they have the sedimentation basins everywhere for water to be pumped into or to naturally flow into, you know.
Yeah, and this does call out before major storm events, prior to and subsequent. I think this has enough language in it. I don't know, Lois, that I'm just throwing that out there.
I'm just relying on some old experience that a lot of what gets said will be done unless it's written down. It doesn't get done. So anyway, back to the permits thing. The applicant must receive necessary approvals from all other applicable agencies, including but not limited to DEEP and Monroe P&Z, prior to starting work. I don't know if that is in this plan from Ben or not.
It should be in there.
It should be.
I haven't seen it, but I'm with you on that one.
All right.
Can that be added to the next draft?
Yeah, we can add anything. I mean, it's as long as it makes sense, and that does make sense in one respect. You know, I think it's going to be covered by planning and zoning too. So,
well, redundancy is not a bad thing.
no, it's not anything that's going to be that they're not going to see again. So,
if we leave it out and P&Z leaves it out,
in trouble.
Oh, there would be. I'm sure someone's got a bad reverb. There'd be a SHIT storm if from I'm sure the neighbor's attorney if that gets missed. So, but whatever. It's words, redundant words. It's okay. It's not, we're not pulling something out of our, rabbit out of a hat surprise. It's not. The way I see where we are now, we're moving to the bond.
Oh, wait a minute.
I've got one other item that I see is missing, which was I called it the re-subdivision of the two properties to make sure all restoration was on for Independence.
I thought we determined that was in their presentation.
It's on a drawing, but that drawing was shown separately. So it was not, unless we can be assured that drawing EX-1 is included and we hold them to it, I think we've got a gap.
EX-1.
That to me was more of it was a good sketch, but there was no statement that they would do that. I think EX stood for example, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, all this work would be for nothing if they end up not dividing the property and one half being sold, and we have a real mess trying to enforce it. Maybe it's as simple as saying that plan drawing EX-1 is included and will be completed within a certain period of time.
Right. Well, that would be that's the detail that would need to be determined, because if you don't determine it, it could be done on after year 5.
Correct. And we were led to believe that was not a big deal, would be done in a short period of time, but we saw nothing in writing that talked about timing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, I wish I could speak more on the process of that, maybe Attorney Schellenberg, but we can certainly put it as a condition of approval, because I'm pretty sure the record will show that they did say that they were agreeable to that.
Right.
But when, the question is when. Is that something that has to be done before pre-construction? Do they have 90 days? How easy is it really to do? Is it a simple filing a Mylar and we're done? I don't know.
Our attorney magically appears here to answer our every question.
Yeah, yeah, the answer is, as Keith said, that if the applicant agreed, there's no issue.
But they didn't agree when. Don't we have to tell them some level of time limit?
That's reasonable. It seems to me that that's implicit within their agreement, that you would have to come up with.
So I guess in the time frame it's going to take them, the time frame it's going to take them to engineer and do an application for the swale. Could that be, which is subject to the pre-construction, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but wouldn't that be the same time frame they can get the lot line revision done?
I think.
Barbara, that was for you.
Yeah, I think you certainly can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember the intervener saying that he was concerned about the lot line revision. Although I'm having trouble recalling as to say, he said why. Oh, except that a property could be sold separately, and there's nothing saying that you can't. So if the lot line isn't reconfigured as soon as possible, it would be not out of the realm of possibility for one parcel or the other to be sold to somebody else. And even though
they'd be buying a piece of property with a violation on it.
Yeah, but the problem is if you're relying on certain things to happen on that wetland, and all of a sudden that wetland is no longer part of the area that you were going to use to remediate it, Do you follow what I'm saying? That's why the lot line reconfiguration is so
Anybody has a
important.
right to sell a piece of property whenever they want to, whether there's a violation or not. If the buyer wants to buy the violation, they could buy the violation.
The problem would be that the applicant would not be able to complete the remediation if he didn't have all of the, no, what's the word I'm looking? If he didn't have all of the things he needed to do it. Like you need to have all the wetlands on for Independence, because if the wetlands are on 64 Cambridge and you're relying on for Independence to provide water to it, but all of a sudden for Independence belongs to somebody else, they don't have to follow anything. It's their property. We
We
got to
already
have it
agreed that
all
we're going to do that. They're going to do the revision. What is the difference between when it gets done? It gets done before pre-construction?
No. I don't think there's a rush on that. I think it goes along with, as you were saying, the timing for the.
So we have one time frame is pre-construction. Okay, so some things need to be done before the pre-construction meeting, and some things have an additional separate time frame if we're going to grant them more time than so after they start work. So things that need to be done before they start work, which is pre-construction meeting. So some of this stuff we want done before they start work, and some of it we're giving them a time frame to complete so they can start working. So we need to know what that one's falling into before construction, or are we giving them 90, 180, whatever days to do it? The reason I asked Attorney Schellenberg how complicated of a process is it reasonable to expect them to have it done by the time they file the swale application? But I don't want to give them an unreasonable condition if it takes 6 months or 9 months to get through that kind of work. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's the standard. It has to be a reasonable condition. So
Right.
That's what you have to go by. That's
so do you want to give them
in your discretion to determine what's reasonable or not.
So
They
Keith,
can always, if they find that our, I'm sorry, go ahead, BJ.
I was just asking Keith where the approval of the swale, is that a pre-construction condition?
I thought it would be because, but maybe not, because the swale I think comes in at a much later time. They have to build that watershed.
Mm-hmm.
They're already distributing the water through a pump and sprinkler heads. But that swale is actually one of the last things that's going to be implemented, because they have to fill in and recreate that watershed that feeds the swale with rainwater. So I think we had a time frame on that. Didn't we have 270 days for something, which I think is a lot, and they had said that they would be right on it.
I remember that number now, but there's an approval that comes at the end of that pre-construction, right?
No, so basically what happens is as far as I remember, because I've been in a couple of them. So when you get your approval letter with the conditions, some conditions need to be met before you hit the pre-construction meeting. But if you're giving extending a timeline like 270 days or 90 days, that allows you to, you can start doing the work, but these other items can be addressed, later on. That's why you give them that extra time. Otherwise, you'd just be holding up their actual permit until all the conditions were met.
Okay.
But if they felt that we were being unreasonable, say we said 180 days, they could always come back for an approval amendment and say, well, listen, there's no way we could do it in 180 days. We need 270 or whatever, whatever the timing would be. Knowing that the turnaround time sometimes for some of these huge site plans has been just a couple of weeks, I'm sure they could probably come up with something within 180 days. That's 6 months.
Donna, good.
Something that Attorney Marino told me today is that this is not an application. This is just for a resolution to a notice of violation. So you're kind of looking, I think you're confusing what we normally do for an application and what the purpose of this decision is.
That's where I was going.
Donna is raising a good point. Just to clarify, you are deliberating on an application, but it's not a permit application. It's an application for remediation, restoration. So it is true that you do not need to view this or have the same necessarily the same requirements that you would have for permit applications.
Is that because we would have resource if the remediation was not occurring properly? We could recite them and against the original violation? I'm a little confused.
No, I mean, you do want to have safeguards in place. I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be viewed necessarily the way you view a permit application. You want to, in other words, the idea of this, if you approve it, is that you are requiring the property owner to do what is necessary to remedy the violations that were noticed. That's what you're doing.
The problem is that a lot of this application has nothing to do with them remedying the actual violation.
So,
and the whole thing is very screwy.
We're hung up on what of these conditions are pre-construction and what of them have an extension, right? Is that?
It's not a pre-construction. You're just asking them to complete their remediation work. A pre-construction
I'm talking about this. I'm talking
you're
about
doing
these.
site development, and this is not site development. That was why you denied the other application, because it included site development. This is solely remediation.
I think I understand, but my point was that if we have conditions of approval, and we're talking about the time frame of when those conditions need to be met. So do they have to meet all these conditions before this approval is active, or some of them have a longer time frame so they could start? Like, for instance, I just said the swale. We know the swale doesn't come into the very last phase. So does that mean that we have to allow them to commence work until the swale is? Do we have to wait until these property lines are changed before they can start work? So some of these conditions we want before they start. The third-party monitoring has to be determined before they start because someone needs to monitor it, right?
Mm-hmm. So one of the conditions, and I don't know whether you've gotten to it yet, is where it says this approval shall be an encumbrance against the properties and shall run with the land and be binding of the owner and its successor. So I'm thinking that if this is going with the land, the first thing you would want to do is get the boundaries situated. That's just a suggestion. It's just what I'm thinking, and I'll be quiet.
That makes total sense.
I do understand what you're saying, because this approval is not to a person, it's to the land or this decision. They're always bound to the land, not the owner.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, I think everything's.
That's always true.
Right. So it belongs to the land. So having the land, the proper pieces of, having it all be on one property is kind of, I guess, in a way, kind of important if you're concerned about this being sold off as two different pieces, which anything is possible, right? In the world of real estate, things happen all the time. But so we have to start deciding whether these things which conditions of approval are before work commences and which ones we're going to give them a time frame on. I know for sure the swale, we can give them time on the swale, right? Because they can't build it until, or they would, even if they built it now, it's not gonna be fed with any water until the very end.
But they would have to provide us the construction detail before they begin. Correct?
No, because we said it's a new application.
Oh, that's right.
Because the hearing had closed, or the proceedings had closed, and they wouldn't be able to enter it. So it's a new application. So I don't want to make them go through the application process if they want to get rolling on this thing. For that. If it was something that had to be done in the first phase, the first 4 or 5 months, that would be a reasonable expectation that, you know, that they provide details because they're going to be building it. I'm asking what other things on our list of conditions could have a separate time frame. If anybody thinks of anything.
I'm looking through the list here, and I don't see, other than that separation of the property, I don't see anything that isn't more under the heading of, you know, as work progresses.
I mean, not.
Well, the outside expert, the independent expert, you said that was going to that had to happen within.
I would think before. Because it's not like we have anybody can even go out there and look. In order to monitor it, you have to have the monitor in place before it starts. I would think. It's not going to be very hard. It's not gonna,
you need to have a baseline in order to monitor. Barbara,
I think the baseline's I believe the baseline's been established. There's been a number of professionals. We've all been out there. We've all seen. There's plenty of photos.
Since they started pumping, we haven't seen a thing since they started pumping.
Right,
and
but we know it was before. So the monitor could come in on the first day and go in and assess what's out there, and we can compare it to the pre-pumping condition, which was documented, I believe.
Okay. All right.
Right. I believe we have a baseline because we all saw it. We all walked, you know.
We also need it for the other monitoring wells, though. I guess, do we have that data in the WSP report? Did they actually provide the chemical analyses of the testing that they did? Because if they didn't, we don't have anything to go by. You've got to have a baseline.
So that would be after we hired, their first tests of soils and chemicals would be our baseline. We can't, if there isn't any historical data, the first data set that gets recorded becomes our baseline.
Okay, so we would need to determine
go back in time. Yeah, but that would be right off the bat. What?
If only. I said, if only we could go back in time, that would be great. Right. Yes, so, but we would need to determine when we want the baseline to be determined by.
That would be the first. That would be their first inspection.
Right. So when would that be? That's what I'm thinking that I would like to see.
They have to get hired first. So I think at the same time, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but once we agree on a draft approval, that other requests for proposals need to go out almost the same time. I mean, we got to get right on it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they have there's going to be a little bit of a gap in time here between to meet the conditions, you know, draft between approval and commencement of work. I mean, if there's any way to expedite it, I'm totally for that, to make it happen as fast as possible to get this thing going. And I think, again, I'm not, you know, I don't want to hit them with a hard condition. I don't know how long the lot line thing's going to take. But it does kind of, I heard some, I want to say argument, but some information for you guys that kind of makes sense that it should be, you know, a condition that's met in the beginning.
Well, in an earlier version of this draft, there is a section C and D that lays out conditions to be addressed prior to construction and conditions to be addressed prior to issuance of the CO, prior to bond. I mean, couldn't we just make it clear? That seems to disappear completely.
I saw that and I can't seem to
Page
find
5
it.
of 7 on Donna's draft.
The latest draft?
Yeah,
The latest draft that's not nowhere on page
not the
5.
latest one that was today, the one that Donna, that one that Donna drew up, not the one that Ben drew up.
Right.
The one
That
that
was
does
the
not
first
have.
one? The first one that we got?
Oh, I don't know if it's the first one or not.
One before
We've got
Donna's
quite a
latest
few.
Well, let me see what I have on page 5 of this one that I'm looking at. Standard requirements, conditions be addressed prior to release of bond. That's page 5 of 6 on this one.
No.
And then standard requirements F, it was E, conditions to address prior to release of bond. This is the one I'm looking at. I mean, I might have another one here. I have a couple different copies. C, conditions to be addressed prior to construction, issuance of IWC permit. Is this? Yeah, so this has the 6 points addressed to all above conditions. Verification easements must be provided if applicable. The bond, issuance of building permit if applicable, which is not, right?
Right.
That can come out of there. Original notice of decision must be filed in land records. That's standard. Pre-construction meeting shall take place with the wetlands agent prior to disturbance or alteration onto the site. Address all above listed conditions unless otherwise, unless other time frame noted.
Exactly. This is the structure to put that in.
And I think that the only one at this point that I could see is the swale application. And possibly, like you said, they can come in and ask for a request. If there's something, is non-feasible, they can certainly come back and ask for a time frame. And if that's agreeable, and I think if that's the standard case, right, they can come and say, look, we can't get the lot line revision done in time before the pre-construction meeting, other conditions. We could give them some kind of an extension, correct?
It's my understanding. Or we can just revise that clause on the permit, the approval.
Right.
I mean, some of you guys want to see that done. So, we're trying to get this thing done. We want to get it done. So to make everybody happy in a way, I guess, it probably is the better avenue.
So we're going to put that down under C? On Donna's.
On this, it was.
Donna, was there a reason that whole section was taken out in the next revision?
I'm actually not sure which one you're looking at right now. I had mine, and then I had added the engineering comments, but now that's coming out. I'm not sure, and then I had added in the list that you guys had
So
sent me.
notes, just to help you out, Donna, this is the notice / certificate of decision, draft site restoration. Now, in this particular version, everything was capitalized except for site restoration. I'm sorry, it was all capital letters, but site restoration had a capital S and a capital R, if that helps you determine which one we're looking at. And it was not underlined, only notice / certification of decision was underlined. Draft site restoration was not underlined, but site restoration was in bold.
Donna, was the one that included the engineer's comments, was that the last one? Or was there one after that?
That one I sent to you, and then I sent the one that Attorney Moreno sent.
Okay, so the last one of yours that we have is the one that includes the engineer's comments.
Yes.
Okay, I think that kind of refines what we were looking for. Am I right?
I think we're learning a lot of things here, but we're probably never gonna have to do this again.
I think what we need to do is now kind of start with another clean copy and.
Well, we have, I think, based on, right, so if you look at what we got presented today, we had a discussion with the town engineer. that he feels that his 9 points will be reiterated at planning and zoning. We're going to put a note in there that it's like a referral notice, I guess. I don't know what the wording was, but that these 9 points should be addressed at planning and zoning.
Except for number VIII, number 8.
What about number 8?
It was under. Oh,
I'm reading it, but I don't know why number 8 matters.
oh, it's the one that BJ picked out.
Yeah, but
The construction sequence?
Oh, wait, I got so many different
I
papers
thought
here.
that would be sufficient under planning and zoning. I'd flagged it, but I walked back on that.
Oh, you did? Okay, then I take it back.
Yeah.
I'm just referring to, I got 75 pieces of paper here. It's seriously confusing.
Yes, I'm hoping you're all going to send me notes tomorrow.
Oh, you don't probably don't want
I think so far, if I wish I had printed out a copy of this, but we're going to take out all. So under A, the latest one, everything's coming out except for I.
Wait a minute, which
I has
A?
been adjusted. Under A, which A?
Which, Vinny's copy or Donna's copy?
Latest copy. So everything that we're going to talk about for adjustments should be adjustments made to the latest draft copy.
Which is Vin's copy.
Which was the one we got today at 4:17.
Okay, so let's start on page 1, because page 1 is, well, page 5. All right, so we're crossing out public hearing out of the first page.
That is correct. I'm putting regular meeting. Now, because this is a remediation, I normally, for an approval for an application, I put the date of approval, the condition A deadline, and the 5-year expiration. Instead of that, do you just want to have a section stating the timeline for like each thing that you want? For instance, like if you say, we want the revised plans to be done within 90 days, and then we want the lot line revision to be done in 270 days. We want
those are the only 2 things, Donna. And I think if you go to the other draft that I'm reading, and it has this area C, that's all covered there.
Okay.
That wasn't imported into the latest draft, but we have some adjustments to that C. But I don't want to, I hate jumping back and forth and getting everybody confused, but in C, there were things that could come out.
Okay. So I'm going to take that off then on the front page where it says date of approval condition. And is there a deadline for the work to be done? Is it a 5-year time frame?
I think it was.
Okay.
5-year time frame for the whole thing, but shouldn't we have benchmarks?
The permit's good for 5 years. They can request a 5-year extension.
That's on a regular permit. This isn't a regular permit. This is so wrong. There's just so many things that are wrong.
So
about
do we have separate time frame conditions if it's for this, whatever we call this kind of?
For remediation, yes, you do, but it's usually quicker. However, because of the scope of the work that needs to be done, if you want to put a 5-year deadline on it, that's up to the commission, but you're looking for it to be remediated and to have an end date.
And I thought in our discussions with the applicant that they had told us it would take 5 years and walked us through, and that was a reasonable period of time. So I would say we go with 5 years.
5 years.
My vote.
Okay.
Says it in here in this draft anyways. They always can come back and, we've given extensions if they're doing the work, if they're doing good faith work, it's not going to be an issue.
Right.
Something else we usually have, or that we need to have, I guess, would be what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if we find that one of the monitoring wells shows up a contamination? What happens if the pump stops working? What happens if we find that the wetlands are not being replenished, or it's doing more harm than good?
I think the last time we discussed this was that two things. We have two security blankets. One is we have a bond, and the other one is they have to come back to us to put a building on the site. And they're investing in this to develop it. So
if we find in 1 year that there's contamination, we're going to wait for 5 years until they come back with the site plan?
If the monitor finds contamination, he has probably a due right, whatever the word is, to report it to the Department of Environmental Protection, right? I can't imagine. He said, "Hey, we found a bunch of PCBs and lead in the ground here, but we're going to just keep that in our file." I think they have professional, whatever the words are, I don't know, that they have to report that. So then it opens up a big, huge bomb. So they're held to a standard. They have to report certain things, and if they find stuff, they have to let it be known to the public agencies. So our monitoring protects that.
I'm not disagreeing with that, Keith. Yes, but there's overlapping jurisdictions. Yeah, they report it to DEEP, who has like probably 1/4 of the staff they need. Maybe they'll address it in 8 or 9 months. In the meantime, contamination is building up, and our permissions are continuing. What I'm saying is that
if we get dirty soil, if anybody has a site and they're working it and they have a permit and they have, they have to get approvals and then all of a sudden they find all sorts of contaminated stuff. But DEP is too busy to come and deal with it. Then what happens?
Right.
What are they going to do? Who stops?
What are we going to do? Because
that stand in front of the bulldozer.
I mean, our application.
You're talking about a lot of conditions that could potentially happen, and you can't condition out every life. You can't do that. Things are going to happen. If it happens, if something goes bad, we got to hope that the right people are doing the right thing.
Hope is not part of this. Hope is not.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Well, that's what we decide. Does the permit end? We've done this on other things. If something goes wrong, the permit has become null and void, and you have to start over. This is one of the things that we have listed in other application approvals. So if there is some criteria that's not met, then there is a repercussion. We can't just say we're going to bank on hope.
But so how do you know every possible thing is going to go wrong? So you can draw it all in there.
All we can do is cover the ones that could possibly go, that could possibly happen, the things that we're monitoring for. Say the water is spilling out of the wetlands and the pump is still pumping like crazy, and they don't stop it. What's the repercussion?
Would that be a violation of wetlands? Notice a violation where this whole thing started from. If they're not following, look, they had a permit, right? They didn't follow the permit. They got a notice of violation. I think it's the same thing. If they're not doing what they say they're going to do, they're in violation of whatever permit we gave them, and we start the whole thing over again. We give them a citation, right? I mean, I can't imagine that this approval allows them to just go and do whatever the hell they want and break all the rules and all the promises and all the legal jargon and stuff that's in this decision and with no ramification. I don't know why. I think we're over worried.
Keith is right. If there is a violation of a condition, if you approve this, you have a condition, there's a violation of that condition, a violation of anything that you are ordering, then certainly you have the option of issuing another NOV, or for that matter, a cease and desist order.
But if it's not a violation, if it's, wait a minute, I lost my train. Say they found contamination in a well. And it's on a piece of property that is in our URA. that the contamination is coming from. Now, that's not a violation. It's a situation, but it's not a violation. So what happens if we do find that? Is the permit null? Does it have to be corrected and dug up?
What's the well, in your scenario, Commissioner Spence, what's the
My
well doing?
scenario is a groundwater. What?
What's the well doing? Monitoring well?
One of the monitoring wells, yes. It shows contamination where it hadn't shown contamination before. I'm just coming up with one thing that I can think of. Usually there's some kind of.
What would normally happen? What would normally happen? What's the normal function of after a report of contamination in the monitoring well?
I don't know. I've never run into that before. See, the problem is that this is all unproven, uncharted territory. None of us know what we're doing. I'm just trying to.
Uncharted territory because there's millions of monitoring wells all over the country, all over the world. People
We're
do
only
exactly
concerned
the
with
same
Monroe.
thing.
Yeah,
I know. I already know of 3 of them that exist in the town of Monroe that are monitored, and that's what happened. So it's not like
if there's contaminated well, you notify DEP and they're going to respond. They're not going to not do anything.
you can't go and set up a protocol to deal with a failure for DEP. That's just way above our heads.
Okay, I will back off. I don't agree, but I back off.
All right, so I want to just kind of regroup and get back to where we were, which was going over, starting at page 5. Okay, we said, I'm sorry, page 4. I don't know if we said this the 3rd or 4th time, but I'm going to say it again. AI, swale construction detail, those 3 words got expanded to application submitted for permit for the swale construction. I can't remember. I thought Commissioner Hall, you might have wrote it down, or you said it better than I did. It became like 3 sentences long.
I thought you said it. I did not write anything down. Sorry.
I don't know. I remember we discussed it and we said, "Oh, that sounds so much better. That covers everything." I didn't write it down.
It'll be on the recording.
So after that, the next 9 items come off per our discussion with the town engineer, Scott Schatzline, and we were going to kind of do a referral to P&Z, I guess, that they consider these 9 items in their decision or in their hearing. Are they underway at planning and zoning, or are they waiting for this?
I think they're underway.
I think they are probably maybe opening at the next meeting.
Oh, okay. So
maybe.
So they have the opportunity, I'll say, to integrate some of the town engineers' comments into that permit application. Okay, so those are going, and then.
Oh, I found wording for the swale. Maybe this is what you had in mind. The swale is proposed running from north to south, described and shown at the June 23rd, 2021 meeting, must be constructed as part of the restoration. An application for the regulated activity must be submitted and approved by IWC in order to construct the swale. Swale shall be built to specifications approved by the town engineer and presented to the commission at a future application hearing.
Yeah, that's basically it. The first 2 sentences. Okay, then B, C, D, I think we're all untouched, right?
Except they moved into the lowercase Roman numeral so that they're underneath A.
Right. That's the formatting. Right. So they're going to be they're going to be letters, lowercase letters. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Okay. But I think you're right. The wording is fine.
E and F were merged. And I think we had some, and then we were adding that the third party professional monitoring company is going to be at the cost of the applicant / landowner. Okay, right? Are we good?
We're good.
Rest of the G is boilerplate. Timing, expiration, or transfer of approval. I don't think we even concerned about that. We had something we were adding in, I thought. Wasn't there another thing we're adding?
You were adding in all the permits should be applied for, such as deep zoning and.
Yeah, the standard other permits, right? Okay, we were adding that. Was there something else?
Do you want wording for that?
I think it's kind of standard. Yeah, I think we must have seen that before.
Well, I've got some here, so we have to give Donna. She can't come up with standard stuff that she doesn't deal with all the time.
Are you okay with it?
I thought it was
Send me the wording and.
Yeah, we could send information.
Okay.
I think I actually think there is already wording in some of the other approvals.
I had just yeah, in the yellow one it was refined a little bit. Okay.
Okay, so if I'm mistaken, the only thing left we have is the bond. And then going back to that paragraph C in the previous edition. So we probably should talk about the bond.
Wait, I came up with something else in a thought. Did we want to put on the land records for Independence that in the event something goes awry and somebody else is now owning it, that all drainage from For Independence should be directed to the southeast of the wetland.
Are you talking about an alteration to what this approved?
No, it would just be in the event that, well, the swale I think is supposed to direct the drainage For Independence, but I was just thinking that if somebody else bought the property, I mean, things happen. If somebody else bought the property and
they don't want to do anything, they have to come to us. They have to come to us to do any change to anything they're going to do. It's going to affect or be in our area. I think we're kind of covered. Now, I did.
How about the liner? We want that on the Mylar?
Didn't we say isn't the liner in there?
The liner's on the plan, but if it's not on the land record, someone just wondering if, because that's an integral part of this. If it changes, it gets omitted, it will destroy everything we're trying to do.
I'm confused. What's the difference? What are you concerned about with the liner? You're talking about something happening to it after this is all done?
That was my point the whole time.
Right. The liner is all within the upland review area, right? So someone's going to come in and take the old survey, the old as-built, showing the liner in there and showing us that they're going to do something to that liner. We're going to be able to stop them.
Okay.
But back to before we go on to the bond, I did it again. Of the conditions that we just discussed, as far as I can tell right now, there's only 2 that we're going to let extend past the pre-construction. And one is the swale, which would be I. And the other one was it the lot line revision? I don't remember.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to come up with timeframes before we move on. Someone throw out something for the swale.
I believe Kevin said he could do it very quickly. So I would say, how about 180 days? That's 6 months.
Give him 6 months to do the swale.
Yeah.
Is everybody cool with that?
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else? All right.
Well, 6 months to design the swale and get it
To
approved.
make the application.
Yeah, make the application. Mm-hmm.
The application filed. To be more specific, 6 months to file the application for the swale. The lot line revision. Now, I should say, let me clarify that. It should be 6 months from the notice of the decision, not from the pre-construction meeting.
Oh,
For
good.
the date of the notice.
Right, yes.
They may need some time to get to the pre-construction and do the other things, but that the clock starts ticking the time that we sign off on this. For the lot line revision,
Do you want to make that the same? I mean,
if that
he owns
makes
both
it
pieces of property, so
right.
yeah, shouldn't be any conflict.
It could be included in the same application.
I don't think it's an application. I think it's just they have to file a new Mylar, if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so
could
they just
show
have
the-
to show us that it's been filed within the same 6 months.
But
Is
they
that what
could
we're
also
saying?
show it on the application for the swale.
If it's done
That
before
should be
that,
quick.
it could, yeah, the new A2 survey would probably reference it. But I wouldn't make one a condition of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're good with that. Time frame. So everything, all conditions must be met pre-construction, except for the two that we gave separate timelines. So now we can move on to the bond. And let's see here. The recommended from the town engineer was 742 and change, I believe. The request from the applicant was, I don't remember what it was. Anybody remember?
Well, their original request was 143 something.
Oh, is that what this works?
Yeah, that's the worksheet on the back.
That was from, I thought this was from,
Yeah, they submitted, I believe, they submitted the cost, the bond estimate, and then Scott revised it to what he felt it should be.
right, this was from Chris from Soli. He
Yep.
showed on the right-hand side where the town was requesting,
Mhm.
and he's showing what they came up with. Okay, I see it. Both numbers are here. So what do we, anybody have any thoughts on this?
Did Scott revise his numbers, or was he still?
I don't think he was going, I didn't remember hearing that he was going to.
No.
Yeah.
No, that was his recommendation. And then you have what the Soli engineers did. So it's up to you.
I think I
I think we
remember,
stayed with the town engineer's recommendations.
I agree.
Sue requests that
Would you like me to clarify?
well, Scott, let's just let everybody else who has any comments from the commission, and then please, we'll have you chime in.
All right.
Clark, any thoughts on this? No, Ross? Nothing else. The only thing I think it's kind of challenging on this one is that you can't possibly topsoil the site in its current condition. So that's where it seems to me like it's a little bit on the high side. But well, go ahead, Scott. Let's hear your thoughts on it.
Okay, so the site stabilization and restoration bond, what I usually do is I'll look at the entire area that has potential to be disturbed. And in this case, it's kind of unique in that that area is currently disturbed. So we're headed into this thing with the worst case scenario that the entire area is disturbed. Now, what's happened is, I think the biggest number change is the topsoil. We're not that far off on the area that has to be determined. It's the cost of it. They're putting in 10 cents a square foot. I'm using 30 cents a square foot, which is quite a bit less than the state of Connecticut number that they use. And the reason that I've gone for more money on this thing is because unlike other developments where you can throw some topsoil on, throw some seed, you get some grass growing or some type of cover for ENS control. On this one, most of the disturbed area is rock, crushed stone, rock, and in areas where you have rock like that, you need a fairly decent amount of topsoil in order for growth. Otherwise, it burns out and nothing grows well. At least it doesn't get established quick enough. So that's why I went for 30 cents a square foot as opposed to 10 cents a square foot. Was because it was 30 cents is much closer to furnishing and placing topsoil, which isn't there. A lot of other developments have stockpiles of topsoil that you can kind of hit, but so that's the major difference. The other item that is quite a bit higher than what they have is the landscaping. When you have a site this large, you're going to need some landscaping out there to discourage future use and dumping, etc. They've got over 33 acres here, so I put in $1,500 an acre. If you think of an acre of land and what you can do with $1,500 for landscaping, it's not much. So that's where that number comes from. And then I added in that if we had to restore it at one of these earlier stages, we would have to put in the sedimentation basins. And so there's a lump sum for that, and there's quite a number of them. So that's another item that was added in. That's how I came out to that high number as opposed to what they were proposing.
How much, Scott, of this could be released after so you said you have in for the sedimentation basins and erosion control measures. How much of that roughly, you don't have to get specific, but or a percentage roughly could be released, say after like they get established there and their restoration operation is underway?
Well, that's for another day, obviously, but the problem is that they're working from the south to the north, and the real restoration of your wetlands and the reestablishment of the grading to support the hydrology doesn't happen to the end. I mean, they're not going to be filling that part till the end of their whole filling operation. So that site's going to be changing as time goes on. Will they be, maybe the initial part, the most southerly end of it will get done and seeded over, and they'll just have an access road that goes through to the other part. But kind of the way they have it set up, they've got a lot of staging, and I mean, it looks to me like they're going to have a pretty large disturbed area for quite a while. But I mean, it's always something you could revisit in the future in terms of reduction.
Yeah, I think another thing about this that makes it kind of challenging to visualize and even think about on this is that you couldn't topsoil that site right now. You have months and months of work before you could even spread topsoil down there. So it's not like if someone walked away tomorrow and there was a bond that you could topsoil that site.
Yeah, like for instance, my number for grading to get to that point, you're right, where you could actually topsoil some of it is $2,500 per day. And then I only have 10 days in there for grading. Now, bear in mind that sometimes exposed rock or crushed stone in itself is stable. So it's not like you have to topsoil the entire thing. Sometimes, having an area that's exposed, for instance, the cliff and the rock surfaces near that don't have to be topsoil. I mean, they're stable, certainly. And in that case, you'd be looking at more making sure that the detention basin is installed so that any increase in runoff can be handled in that fashion. So it's a kind of a combination of different things that would be done to the site, and it's so fluid. I mean, it changes over time that if something were ever to happen, then at that point you got to take a look at it and say, well, okay, how much of the bond do you need to actually clean this up and stabilize it so it's safe and environmentally sound.
Now, did you take into consideration those different stockpiles in the calculation of overall acreage? I know it would be very tedious, but did you blanket it like just the total square footage of this disturbed area?
It's just the square footage on a flat surface, basically. I didn't compute slopes or
more of like if there was a stockpile of that was 300 feet by 300 feet, and that's maybe an acre and a half or something that is secure. Did you consider that? Did that depth? I know it would be a very tedious thing to do.
If there's a stockpile, we're not gonna. We would never be in a position where we're going to go in and finish their work. We would go in, we wouldn't even go in. It would be more like we would do whatever we need to do to have the work done, obviously.
Right.
But things like stockpiles would get maybe knocked down a little bit so they're not eroding, but they would stay in place and just make sure that they're stable, meaning maybe they need topsoil and seeding. If it's a pile of crushed stone, just leave it. I mean, it's not going to hurt anybody by having a pile of crushed stone sitting there other than aesthetics.
Right.
Yeah, so when you get into this kind of bond, it's such a big area, it's all kind of a very approximate thing. You just look at I've always taken just the overall disturbance and then looked at topsoil and seeding that as a way to be consistent.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any questions for Scott, town engineer? All right. Thanks, Scott.
Okay. Welcome.
So we have one suggestion, right, Commissioner Stewart, unchanged from the town engineer's recommendation. Anybody else have any other comments on this? Commissioner Hall, you're muted, Commissioner Hall.
I agree with Mr. Stewart.
That's what I was going to say. Scott made good sense. I think we should stick with it.
The only thing about it that I don't quite buy into, I guess, is if you want to say it all together, is that, if the half of that floor or a third of that floor is blasted rock, there's no erosion that could happen there. And it would, even the part that fills up with water, right? So even if you pumped it out to topsoil, that 5, 7, 8, whatever it is, I don't know the areas, you wouldn't be putting 6 inches of topsoil on top of the bottom of a ledge hole, like a quarry floor. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to saturate. And so I feel like I understand it's a tedious job to go in and nitpick all the different areas. And I think any typical situation, just take, like he said, the area of disturbed and apply a formula to it to come out with the numbers. But this is a lot of area, and it would, in the end, I don't think anything that's secure, which I think a large portion of that property is secure from erosion. So I could see a good reasoning to have an adjustment made.
Keith,
Yeah,
what I see is gonna be happening is they're not gonna be proposing to, they're never gonna want to topsoil this whole property. They're gonna do their filling. They're gonna try to find someone to develop it. They're gonna come in and get applications to develop it. And then they're gonna pave it and landscape it and build a building so that they don't have to buy all this topsoil to cover it up.
oh, absolutely, I agree, it's never
The
gonna
thing
happen.
is, what we've got to protect ourselves against is if they fill the entire site, they can't sell the properties. They're sitting there waiting till the very end. It's all been filled. All the rocky areas are now covered with fill and ready to be topsoiled. And then they don't want to do it because they're trying to find someone to come in and fill in. At that point, if they can't find anyone, it's gone through the 5 years and it continues to drag on. We have to have the money to get them to stabilize the site.
You're right. You know, I didn't even think about an intermediate pause or stoppage of the thing, right? I'm thinking of today's condition as if they never did it, but so you're right. They could go ahead and start, not finish the project, and it's all just fill material that's spread out. So good point. All right, anybody else? So what do we do? We want to keep it at the recommendation? Do we vote on that? Do we, you know?
I move that we keep it at Scott's recommendation of $740,000.
I'll second. Second from Commissioner Hall, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passed unanimously. Okay, so that was the last big thing, I think.
Well, I have one more thing that popped up to me, and I wanted to just bounce it off of everybody. The whole western side of the site, well, not the whole, the western side, the southwestern portion of the site has nothing whatsoever to do with the restoration, except for the base, which could be a lot lower than they're proposing. I would like personally to see a separate application for the filling and whatever it is that they're planning on doing on the western portion and the southwestern portion, as a separate application, as a permit for regulated activity, because there's a lot of regulated activity here that could have direct effect on wetland 1 that is being completely unregulated by us because we don't have a permit for it. We're giving a blanket permit for an area that is much, much larger than the restoration section. And I would like to have that portion removed from this and have a separate application for it, go through the proper procedures, get an actual regulated permit for it. There's just...
Can I ask a clarification? Are you talking about areas on the full proposed plan that are outside of our review area?
No, you gotta remember that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So are you talking about parts of the plan, on their plan, that are outside? Are we 100 or were we 150 on this one? I can't remember.
We're 100 foot from the wetlands and 500 feet from the vernal pool. There is a vernal pool in wetland 1.
Right. So outside of those areas where we have jurisdiction, are you talking about those areas outside of our jurisdiction that are on the plan? Because
well, there's also a lot of areas that are in our jurisdiction that are on the plan because of wetland 1 and all of its URA.
Okay.
So it is that area that has nothing to do whatsoever with the restoration of wetlands 2 and 3.
So there's no restoration in that URA upland review?
No. That there's development of sedimentation basins, there's filling, There's,
Within
but there's
that area.
nothing,
So, but there's nothing there? There's nothing being done in that area, upland review area?
yeah, they're building
There
detention
is.
basins. And
Okay, so
yes,
that was
there
part
is.
of their application.
My point is that so was that whole area around the swale. I would like to see a separate application for that part of it because it should not be part of the restoration. And that's our
But it
determination.
was but it is in their application, right? So we had
Oh,
an
it's in the
opportunity.
application. It's in the
So we had
application,
an
but
opportunity, so we had an opportunity to deliberate or influence that part of the plan. You're saying
not anymore.
what?
Not once
Yeah,
you
but we
once you
did, but we
approve it.
did, and then the hearing was closed, and then our deliberation. So, what about that? Why is there be another plan if it's already included in this plan, and we're agreeing with this plan to with these conditions? Why do we need a separate plan?
Because we never ever vetted any part of that application as it pertained to wetland 1. There was absolutely, I tried to bring it up several times and it got squashed each time. But that wetland 1 is actually 2 or 3 times the size of the other wetlands that were already destroyed. And there's a potential to seriously negatively affect wetland 1. So I think that we should separate part of it out and make sure that there's a regular due process, regulatory process to address that section of the property.
So we didn't have that opportunity during this whole proceeding?
We weren't talking about that at the time.
But did we have the opportunity? Was it
I don't know.
presented to us? Was
No,
those
it was
areas
not
on the
presented to
plan?
us. It's not on.
It wasn't on
The
the
areas
plan?
are all on the plan.
So is there, what's the proper term? Was there a proposal of changes in that area on this plan? They proposed
Yes.
changes?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so that was part of the, so we had an opportunity to discuss and go back and forth with the applicant on those areas you're speaking of now.
I tried. Everybody kept rolling over it.
But you didn't have it, you had an opportunity to discuss it and ask
I
them to make
tried.
changes.
Several
Right.
times.
So you were saying you want a second chance to go at this part of it.
Yeah, I do. Because this
Okay,
is not a
so-
normal application.
I don't know how that works. I really don't. I mean,
Well,
I guess it's back to, do you want to deny this application because you don't like it?
because it's faulty.
Again, but to ask someone to put a condition and say, we're not accepting your plan as presented. And you have to reapply for this one area. I don't know if that works. I mean, I don't know if that's even a possibility. So what I'm saying is that unless someone's going to tell me different because they've done this before or have seen it
Nobody's done
before.
this before.
Well, of course, this is uncharted territory. But what I'm saying is that I don't see how you could make that a condition that makes any sense. I think it's just it would be a denial.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things I'm
Because-
thinking of, and I'm watching it. This I've mentioned several times during the hearings, but it really disturbs me that all of the runoff that is leaving the site is being directed all to the southwest section of the of that wetland. All of that whole wetland on the upper part, on the northern part, is going to be dewatered because they're taking all of that 30 acres or whatever it is, and they're funneling it down into 2 sedimentation basins at the very, very southern end of the property. There is nothing going into the northern section of the property. It's all being funneled off. This is what I'm not happy with. And I think we should have it separated out some way or another from the restoration because it's a different situation. Now, instead of having 2 destroyed wetlands, we'll have 3. And we could have prevented it. And that would be our fault, our bad, and we are responsible for that.
And when you brought this up to the applicant during when it was
Several
open,
times. several
And what was the
times.
response? They didn't respond to you? You're
No,
saying they didn't respond to you?
basically I got ignored.
Okay, so no one else discussed, no one else came up with any other alternative.
No.
You're requesting.
Everybody's been concentrating on that upper wetland so much, they're paying no attention to the other 30 acres.
I don't know whether you make a motion to deny this application because your concerns weren't met, or can we say you're not happy this one section and they have to reapply? I don't know if you could do number 2. I know you could do number 1, right? I know you could do number 1. I don't know if you could make this condition that you're describing, fly.
We did it for the swale.
No, the swale is a separate application for something that was missing.
That had
They
been
agreed to do it.
I'm trying to think of language or some way to state it. I guess, Keith, I can't come up with any. I mean, does it require remediation? Did they agree that it requires remediation? Because
not that section.
I looked for me personally. I looked at the whole scenario, what they were trying to do, and I thought it was, in my opinion, met all the needs, okay, of what everybody. And you can't meet everybody's needs, and you can't make it. Each of us would gladly have seen it done a different way that we thought was great. But I thought to make everybody happy, be good for the town, good for everybody, it was an all-inclusive plan. Okay, and we've all made suggestions, and not all our suggestions are definitely addressed in a change. But just because we want to see something else, I don't know if you could just condition that, will to condition a whole bunch of different things, or ask them to come back. I think the swale is different because it was on the record. They said they were going to do it, okay, but they forgot to present it and the final set of plans, and that we closed the hearing. And they agreed that they didn't have a problem with presenting. Again, I don't know how you explain.
Well, like BJ, I agree. I don't know how to word it either. I do know that section needs to be vetted better. And I would be terribly remiss if I knew that there was going to be significant impact to that wetland and we could have prevented it. And that is what I am. I'm looking at the standards and criteria for decision at this moment in our regulations. I know it's here. Something we can take into consideration when making a decision is impact of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands or water courses outside the area for which the activity is proposed, and future activities associated with or reasonably related to the proposed regulations activity, which are made inevitable by the proposed regulated activity, which may have an impact on wetlands and water courses. And there is more. There's another one that has something to do with foreclosing an opportunity to protect a resource in the future. But I can't find it at the moment. So
I look at it this way. They presented their plan as all-encompassing, addressing all the issues, all the violation. And we vetted it out with them. We hashed it out over months and months and months. And if you had a valid thing that was not addressed, that's not, no one wants to see that happen. But we're at the point now where we closed it, they addressed a whole bunch of our concerns for everybody. And it's like you're going back after, after it's closed and trying to bring up an issue. I don't know how that could be, the right thing for us to do and not expose us to something. I mean, we could, 5 years down the road, we might say, oh, geez, I wish we had done that instead. That would have been better. But at the time, we went with the best that we had, the best that we can come up with. We got to make a decision. Well, I don't know. It's also not our job to design this repair. It's to make sure that we're comfortable with, representing the town. It's the engineer's job to do it and take our suggestions and see if they could use them, constructively to come up with something better. But it's not our job. If this thing doesn't work in 5 years, it's not our failure. It's theirs.
It will be our failure if the wetland
It's not our failure. It's not our failure because unless you have the time, okay, and a drafting table and a CAD program and an engineering degree, and you want to draw up something and hand it to them and say, hey, I just did your remediation plan for you. If you like to submit it for the application, then we could have said that we failed, but we're not doing that. It's their job. It's their application. It's their ideas with our input. So
wait a minute, I'll stop you right there because it's not their application. This is not an application for a regulated activity. It's supposed to be our job, as Vin said very distinctly last time, to determine what is minimally acceptable for restoration. So it is not their job to tell us what they will do. It's our job to tell them what needs to be done. So that's,
how is that possible? How is that possible? We're not soil scientists.
Well, the court case he cited was much smaller than that, was much smaller than this particular one. And the agency determined what was minimally acceptable.
Let me go back to my point. My point is that we don't draw the plans and give them to the applicant. The applicant draws the plans and gives them to us. They are the author of the plan. If we could give them 50 different suggestions, they're still the author of the plan. It's their plan. So if they come up with this whole thing and take all the input and everything and they digest it and come out with something, and 5 years later it doesn't work, it's not a failure of this commission.
It is if you know that the potential is there for destruction. That
the potential for destruction is everywhere on the entire planet at any given time. Right? So there's always a potential for destruction of everything.
That's a cop-out.
Everything that's alive can die. Everything that's defeated gravity to be created could be succumb to gravity. So we could talk about this all night, but
we're not.
I think we've done.
I will go no further. I'm saying what my piece. I still think that this is an incomplete application. I think it needs more work. I think it doesn't really do what needs to be done, which is to restore back to the essential functions and purposes of that wetland. So I would love to deny it. I know that the rest of the commission doesn't feel that way, but I think that we're doing a disservice to our positions if we approve it. And I will not beat that horse anymore.
All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I mean, it's not, everybody appreciates everybody's work they're putting into this. And having those feelings or thoughts, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not, but we can't make everybody happy. I didn't think everybody was gonna be happy with this anyways. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's possible. We forgot something on this
draft. It's not supposed to be a matter of making people happy. It's a matter of restoring what we're supposed to be restoring.
What I'm trying to say is that everybody has a different thought. We're not all robots programmed the same way. We all have different ways of looking at things. We all have different suggestions. We all have different things that make us tick. And we can't possibly hit everybody's point and have everybody feel like this is the best. I doubt it's possible, but let's go back to HI, paragraph H, number I. There is a double X there. We have to input on the commencement, no later than how many days from the day of this approval. That's a little tricky because we have to send out a request for a proposal for third-party monitoring company. I think this is a hard one.
Keith, you did 180 days to file the application for the swale. Normally we do, I think it's 270 days for the condition A. So I didn't know if that's a timeline that you want to work within, or
For the commencement of the remediation plan, I mean, these guys talking like they wanted to do it, a year ago. So, not that that really has much impact, but I don't think I think we should change the wording to this to be a certain amount of days from the hiring of the third party, because that's really the condition. We don't know how long it's going to take to get proposals. We don't know how long it's going to take to vet them out. So I think if we just change, if we decide,
suggestion, that's all.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but the thing is, I think the way this is worded, it's really, we can't really say after this letter, because this letter doesn't start a clock. The picking of the third party starts a clock. That's on us and them, it's not like the applicant can perform anything in that time frame.
Right.
That's
Think
key
of that.
date in your pre-construction timeline.
What's that?
The approval is the key date in the pre-construction timeline.
We have that.
I'm with you. I think that's a good starting point. This should say that.
They both should say that. I'm sorry. What is
HI, the paragraph I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm agreeing with you here.
So we should have it be after the hiring of the so many days after the hiring of the third party monitoring company.
Right.
You want to do it as of the hiring or as of the receipt of his or her report?
No, they could commence, let's see, since the violation has been issued, the commission is hereby requiring that the work on the remediation plan shall commence no later than, I was going to say 60 days of the hiring of the third party. But whatever anybody else thinks. I mean, it could be 30. I mean, I don't know what what they have to mobilize or whatever, but it seems like everybody was in a rush to start. So I don't think that is too restrictive. And they're going to obviously, the day that they get this letter, day they get this, this letter signed, they're going to start their planning if they haven't done it already. So I think 60 days is enough. I think that, I mean, the other thing too, Mr. Spence, as far as what they're going to be monitoring, the only thing they can really monitor in the beginning is what's already in place. It's already working, right? They're obviously going to look at whatever they're going to do for importing, but I think they've got a significant amount of time to meet all the erosion control and sedimentation parts of the plan before they start a mass import of material. I don't know, maybe that's not 100% accurate, but I think I don't know. I think I'm saying 60 days. What everybody else thinks, let's hear it.
You get my vote. 60 days.
Everybody good with that?
I'm good with that as long as we include that they've got, if one of our conditions is if they get other permits, it's obviously this condition's got to include 60 days after we've got the third party and they've gotten their other permits that we're requiring them to get. So
I think those permits are required before pre-construction. It's a pre-construction requirement. So this doesn't happen. This can't commence. Well, it's tied into they obviously have to have the that's another condition. I think they overlap. But we're saying that by the time we have to hire the third-party monitoring company, which needs to be in place before pre-construction. So I'm missing something in a timeline there. So we have to hire before pre-construction. We have to hire a third party before pre-construction, meaning that has to be in place. All the protocols that they're going to use have to be accepted by us. There's probably a whole bunch of legal paperwork that needs to be done to set that whole thing in motion, I would imagine. So, Commissioner Stewart, you said about the other permits. Yes, I think they can't come to, I think the way it's worded, right? They can't even come to the pre-construction meeting until they have the other permits. They can't start this until they have P&Z approval, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of covered there.
Yeah.
So 60 days after the hiring of the third party?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Is there anything else?
I have nothing else.
Anyone?
Are you looking to get a clean version and get a vote on this at the next meeting, or are you looking to vote tonight?
I wouldn't want to vote tonight. I would have to abstain if that was the goal.
I would say, well, here's the other thing. I don't have a problem with that, but I think we need to do the letter. I think we got to get on the third party. So I don't think that there's going to be any more real discussion. I mean, seeing it drafted properly is going to be important, but I think it's going to be straight to vote. We're all going to see it beforehand. It's going to be a grammar situation at this point, or some kind of structure of the outline, right? So I think at this point, we're all pretty much agreed on what this should be in this letter, not necessarily with the plan, but the letter, I think we've all kind of agreed how it should be worded and formatted. I think then we should at least let's get a draft of the request for proposal going. I don't know if there's any timeline, things for that, if it has to be approved. I don't even know where we get the list from to send it to. Is it the same group?
Similar to when they did I would talk to Rick Schultz, and he was the one that I think drafted the request last time. I think it does need to go to the town council for approval, I think.
I think that's right. I think Rick is the one to talk to about it.
Yeah.
So I think we should get that request for proposal out. If we're going to we're back to twice a month next month, right? So we're only like
our next meeting September 8th.
Oh, that's not that far. That's only 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's vote on the final draft in 2 weeks, but let's get the letter out for as soon as possible, whatever case, whatever course of action we have
to talk to Rick, and we can send you a copy, you and Lois a copy.
And where do we get I know we don't do it as a commissions, but where does the list come from that we send it to? The last
I think
time we
it's
got the
similar-
list from, did we get it from Chris Sullivan? Did he give us a list of, before we were looking for the, you know,
Yeah,
whatever
and
we call.
I do think it's similar to the same pool of professionals.
Right. It might be a redundancy thing. They do that. So I'm sure, is that me with the feedback?
No, I think it's Barbara.
Robert,
Sorry.
you're robotic. Yeah, it could be the same. It could be the same for companies that get the request sent to them. I'm sure they cover it, and it could be more. But yeah, if we could find out what that is, and at least hopefully be able to pull the trigger on it at the next meeting, if it can't be done before that.
Mm-hmm.
And you said we have to go to town council, Barbara? Is that what?
Yeah, I believe so. That's how it was done last time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're ready to move on to something else? Or are there any more questions or?
Let's move on.
All right. We'll do the minute. What's that? I don't think.
I need to make a motion.
Yeah, right. All right, so let's do the minutes.
You're talking about 6/9?
Yeah, June 9th. Minutes of June 9th, 2021, sorry. Whatever they are.
Move to approve as drafted.
Motion to approve the minutes as drafted. Second. Motion by Commissioner Spence, sorry. Second from Commissioner Gingrich. All in favor? Aye. Commissioner Stewart, you're gonna, motion passed unanimously.
I wasn't here, remember, last meeting.
Oh, you weren't here for June 9th? So I'm not paying attention. All right, so any abstentions? One abstention. So motion passes 5 approve and 1 abstention. Sorry. June 23rd, 2021 minutes.
Move to approve as drafted.
A motion from Commissioner Spence to move to approve as drafted in a second. Second. Second by, that was Commissioner Gingrich. Yeah. Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Hold on. What was the date of the last meeting? Because that's the meeting I was not here for.
It was
That was
July 28th.
28th, yeah.
July 28th. So we're back to June 9th. But you know, I think it's fine. We don't have to change anything.
Yeah, it passed anyway, right?
Yeah. This is June 20th. June 23rd. So we have a vote. All in favor?
June 23rd.
All right, motion passed unanimously. Okay, now we're on to July 28th, 2021. That was our last meeting.
Move to table them until next time.
A motion to table minutes. Meeting. Second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Great. So now I'll leave the meeting. You guys can go back to bond release and time extensions, and then just Mr. Spence can close out the meeting. All right, is that good, everybody?
Yep. Good night,
All right,
Keith.
leave it at 10:34. Take it easy.
Okay, we are at 4 Main Street, IWC 2019-12R, 4 Main Street, bond release requested $33,000. I believe at the last meeting we had requested a report from a professional on the status of the plantings and the condition of the property in general, I believe.
Yes, so I left that on the agenda. They are waiting to get a soil report, so they've asked that they've, I guess, hired someone, so that will be forthcoming. So that can be tabled again till the next meeting.
Okay. We don't need to move to that for that, do we?
I don't think so.
Table
And
it.
then you already did 5 Bridge.
Right, and so the next one is wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we didn't do
Time.
the time extensions.
Right.
232 Elm Street, Acorn Lane subdivision. Oh, this is IWC 26-16. 232 Elm Street, Acorn Lane subdivision, 4 residential lots. DeCilio is the applicant. 5-year extension request. I don't know anything about this. I don't remember anything about this. Let's put it that way. About this application. Can you is Joe here? Can you review
Joe is not here.
Just like a refresher, or at least a copy of the approval, perhaps, so we know what it is that we're extending?
It was for 4 residential lots.
Right.
And it's, I don't know, they just asked for the 5-year time extension.
Okay. It's up in November, I guess, huh?
Uh-huh.
All right, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion and we give them a 5-year extension.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Clark, second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Motion passes unanimously. Next is 24 Commerce Drive, 5-year extension. 2007, WC 2017-04. And I have we don't have any paperwork on this, right? You just added it to the agenda tonight?
That is correct. They had actually sent it to me. So they're
when are they up? Oh, not until 2022.
Right.
Why are they asking so early?
I don't know, but this one was the 24 Commerce was for 14,000 square foot building for commercial vehicle storage and associated site development and remediation.
Oh, and remediation.
The remediation, I believe, was done, but I don't know for certain.
Okay, can we ask Joe or somebody for some kind of an update on that so we know what it is?
Sure, you want to table that?
I would like to table that. Everybody agree with that?
I agree.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, next is, where are we?
You're already reviewed. That was just the last 2 things. We did everything else last.
Oh, okay. Oh, we were talking about 118 Elm Street, weren't we, at one point? Yeah, what's happened with that? Because it's not on the pending items. And
Hi. Oh, okay. For where? 232? They did. They did. All right. Yeah, I don't see you. Oh, are you on? No. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I am. All right. What was the one? It was 118 Elm, Lois, that you were.
yeah, 118 Elm Street, we had a violation. It was supposed to, I think it was supposed to move to citation. Did that ever happen?
118. Elm Street, did you say?
Yeah, it was the
I'm
guy
sorry,
with
Joe
the,
is on the phone.
oh, okay. Hi, Joe. Yeah, 118 Elm Street with that, the shed, the wood, the,
Oh, yeah. 118 Elm Street.
Fancy little cabin shed.
yeah.
It has the little shed on it that they've been using. He wasn't supposed to, but it's yeah. So do you have a status on that? They wanted a citation sent out, but I don't know whether we actually got that out. Okay. All right. Okay. Hold on one second. I'm going to put you on speakerphone so that the commission can hear you. And I just hung up on them. Okay, you are on speaker.
Thank you.
Can you all hear Joe?
Yes, I can hear. Yes.
No, I'm asking. Okay.
Can they hear me?
Yes, they can.
Okay, great. I was just going to mention, since I was knocked out again, is at 232 Elm Street. The site's inactive. It's stable. There's nothing going on out there. I would recommend that you extend it as you requested. 24 Commerce Drive, again, the site's stable. It's not being used for anything. It's, again, totally inactive. I would recommend the extension.
But there's a remediation component to that. Do we know whether or not that remediation was done?
I believe that it has been done considerably as a matter of fact, probably 4 or 5 years ago. There was one rock wall back there. It was been done. I remember being out there 5 years ago and looking at it. It was done.
Okay. All right. As long as you can attest to that, that's fine. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. So do I have a motion to give 24 Commerce Drive the 5-year extension?
Motion.
Motion by BJ Hall. Second by Jim. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. So let me see the rest of the agenda. Status and updates, we don't have any. General discussion, we did the minutes. The Regulation Amendment Committee, committee of one.
I know. I just found those notes again as I was cleaning through stacks of paper on my desk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get
Well,
that.
you know, there's some changes now that we've had some recent developments. I think we need to revisit some of them for wording. And, but some of them definitely, I think we should follow the procedure, whatever the procedure is, the next step. We did vote on all of these individually, I believe. And so the next step, whatever that may be, I do have that down someplace. I looked it up. There's a procedure for changing regulations.
I think I do too, and I just haven't gotten there.
I hear you.
Can we just
amendment and the
It's gonna
public
need to be a public hearing.
right, but they all have to be to deep at least 35 days before the hearing. So the next step is to send it to deep.
Right, but
okay. And then we can set the hearing date. We don't have to hear anything from deep. We just have to send them to them.
Okay.
And then after, we have to hold a public hearing on the amendment within 65 days after the receipt of the amendment proposal, what is our proposal. So, so 65 days, within 65 days of our proposing it, we have to have a public hearing. So that's the next couple of steps. So we'll have to,
yeah,
I don't think anybody wants to do it tonight. So I think probably we should table it to next time and go over them once again and submit them. And Barbara, did you look at those yet?
No, I haven't looked at them.
Okay, because I believe we need at least a.
You want to send that Donna email?
Yep.
Should we vote on them first? Should we determine that they actually are the ones that we want before we send
No,
them?
I think you wanted Barbara to look at them first, and honestly, I've sent them, I know that, but we haven't really
We've
had
been
the.
a little bit busy.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's not your fault. You're kidding. You're like a one-armed paper hanger half the time. Okay, so we'll I'll talk to Donna. We'll see what we need to do next. Okay. That was that. And then we have public outreach where there's nothing. Are there any petitions from the commission on other or correspondence? Hey, do I hear the famous motion?
I make a motion that we close the meeting.
A second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Clark, a second from Jim to adjourn the meeting.
10:46.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.